I'd like to convene the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board here on June 7th. Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson.
Here.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
Commissioner Olson. Commissioner Musich.
Present.
Commissioner Menz.
Here.
Commissioner Elper.
Here.
Commissioner Bene.
Here.
Vice President Crudup.
Here.
President Forney.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Moving on then, I'll take an approval of the agenda.
I'd like to move the agenda for approval.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'll take a motion to approve the minutes from May 24th.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So we are honored to have here a fellow governing body member, retiring council member Lisa Goodman, who was elected in 1997 to Ward 7's to represent them. And I'm just really delighted that she's here because I want to acknowledge her. Lisa's fingerprints are all over our park system. And I'd like to acknowledge my gratitude for your stewardship, seriously. She was a member of the council when in 1999 we entered into the shared service agreement with the city to maintain our parkways. To pass our parkland dedication fee, an effort that was fought hard with her leadership from 2006 through 2013. Only took a couple of days, right? And then it finally went into effect January 1st, 2014, allowing land dedication or a fee in lieu of dedication, resulting over millions of dollars. I've actually got the figures here. I'll pull those out. But anyway, basically, it is about our city's growth and to make sure that as the population grows and jobs grows, so do our parks. And we have really her plus also Senator Dibble and Representative Hornstein to thank for that. We so appreciate that and everything. But the thing that I hold most dear and everything is the fact that she and former Council President Barb Johnson turned the tide. We were set on making a referendum, but instead she was able to create our 20-year neighborhood park plan. These three initiatives alone have created sustainable funding for our park system. Thank you, Lisa. Grateful for your service and hopeful we'll see you and Millie in the parks for many more years. So,
thank you, President Forney, members of the board. I am not here today as a farewell speech. I'm here today to thank Adam Arvison and Jennifer Ringgold and your team for partnering with myself and Tricia Bloodgood, who's here today, the president of Dog Grounds, which is the nonprofit that we started along with Ray Harris in 2007 to build 3 dog parks in downtown Minneapolis. And today you're going to be looking at an agreement which will transfer the assets of 2 of those dog parks to the park board to add to your collection of dog parks so that you can have 2 more that are existing and doing actually quite well. These 2 dog parks were built downtown, one on east side of downtown and the other in Loring Park, to address a need of young people who were living downtown and didn't have cars, but had dogs and wanted to take their dogs to the dog park. Myself, Ray Harris, and Tricia were 3 of those people who lived downtown, and we didn't want to run our dogs off leash in Loring Park. Well, we maybe did want to do that, but we also wanted to try to figure out a way to make that a positive thing for a lot more people. So we worked together, the 3 of us, to build dog parks. We started a nonprofit called Dog Grounds, and there's a second slide. If you could flip to it, we opened the Loring Park Dog Park, which was our first dog park in 2007 with the help of Mary Merrill Anderson, who was the president of the board at the time. So I wanted to just thank you because we're old and we're moving on, and we need to have an institution that will be here forever to maintain these beautiful assets. I'll also note that we're giving you some money that we've raised in order to maintain the assets, and including the dog statue that you saw in the first slide. Our partner we have a board of directors. There's about a half a dozen people on the board, but one of them who's not on the board anymore is Ray Harris, who was one of the founders of the dog park, and he asked me if I could read this statement for him, and you'll understand why he's not here. So I'd love to do that and then conclude. Hi, I'm Ray Harris. I'm 94 years old, and I live in Lowry Hill, and I'm confined to an electric wheelchair. I have led a charmed life. I've always been self-employed. My extended family includes 4 wonderful children and their even better spouses. I have 6 grandchildren. An equally important part of my family have been each and every one of my 16 dogs who were with me when we toddled together, ran for a while, and then hobbled for 92 years until the wheelchair took over. Today I'm going to share more about this part of my family. I'm 94 years old, which is 658 years in dog years. All of these dogs are gone now. I'll probably be gone soon too. Let me reminisce. I've had 16 dogs in my life. There was Duke, an all-white English setter with 1 black eye. There was Sam, a gorgeous blue-eyed German Shepherd. There were 2 all-white Boston Terriers named Dr. Jekyll and Mrs. Heidi. There was Buddy, the Golden Retriever, who inspired and modeled for the artwork that's being given to the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board tonight. There were many more, color, sex, and backgrounds. It didn't matter. Even though I was self-employed, I always had a partner in my life, my dog. Today I am giving in loving memory of all my dogs. Let me recall a few more things I learned from them. When we had a good day, we were happy and danced and romped together and wagged our tails, my rear end, mightily. Even though we were bigger and stronger, we were always restrained and respected everyone. Daily walks gave us joy and solace, rain or shine, the more the better. Bad days, and there were plenty, we nuzzled and pretended to understand. Keep your nothing is that bad perspective with a dog. We thrive on attention, there is never enough. Don't pretend to be important, just be yourself. Live simply. Every day is better than the day before. Act like it. Be loyal to your partner. Be together, eat together, sometimes scraps and sometimes steaks, but always together. And when Father Time calls, we've lived a good life. We are not afraid, but we're content. So for Tricia and I, it's really important that these parks withstand all of us who have been here. And we feel, and I know that Adam and Jennifer have strong feelings, that these assets could last for generations, long past the lives of many dogs. And I think that Ray, who couldn't be here tonight, would be really proud, and he is proud because he's involved, to know that this board and our group created something really incredible and lasting for people and dogs in our community. So as you vote on this memorandum of understanding, which was probably, as Tricia would say, the easiest agreement to ever come to amongst the happiest people who were all working towards a common good, we thought we would come down and thank you for helping people live better lives, more active lives, and more full lives by having an amenity in our park system that acknowledges the human-animal bond. So thank you all very much for taking the time.
Thank you, Councilmember Goodman. I appreciate that. And we hope that we will see you here again, whether as an elected or as a fellow citizen. Anyway, on to then, we will have reports of officers. Superintendent Van Gora, please.
Thank you, President Forney and Commissioners. I look forward to sharing some information with you today. And as with this new format, we'll kind of go through the 5 areas, and we'll share some wonderful work that we're doing within our park system. So, and welcome everybody here today. We'll start with the strategic direction A, act boldly for our climate future. We're going to talk about real quickly is the carbon offset. So the 8-year property tax levy, which expired last year after raising more than $11 million to replace some 40,000 trees lost to emerald ash borer and storms at a 1-to-1 ratio. The MPRB is looking to partner with the Green Minneapolis under City Forest Credits, a nonprofit registry that issues urban tree carbon credits on a 25-year carbon offset project that could shift forestry costs from individual taxpayers to corporations. The idea is to sell credits to businesses to help offset the carbon emissions. The park board would use this money to expand the canopy. For every tree that dies, it plants 2 trees and maintains those trees. The nearly 24,000 park board trees that make up the proposed project already have been planted in the past 3 years. To get credits for the carbon they sequester, 1 credit equals 1 metric tons of emissions. The park board would legally commit to keeping the trees alive for 25 years. After accounting for an estimated tree mortality, the park board would expect to produce more than 50,000 carbon credits from 2019 to 2021 planting season, totaling 1.8 million in proceeds over the next 25 years. With that, we're going to move to strategic direction B, cultivate each community's place and honor cultural traditions in Minneapolis parks. Excited to talk about the murals at B'nai Refectory. B'nai Harriet Master Plan offers direction, and this is quotes, to reveal and interpret the natural and human history of the lakes, expand interpretive programming around the lakes regarding Native American use and history of the area. Building on this master plan, the Refectory Concept Plan offers direction to, quote again, reveal the legacy. And that's to provide space for performance, storytelling, art, and interpretation, focused on revealing the untold stories of the site's cultural history and connecting to the current and future cultural landscape of the region. So to accomplish this, staff are proposing a design, installation, and maintenance agreement with the Native American Community Development Institute and the Hennepin Theater Trust for a mural on the B'nai Refectory site. The mural will build on existing programs called We Are Still Here, a multi-year partnership between the NACDI and the HTT, I'm just acronyms, so same thing I mentioned before, to bring large-scale, high-profile public artworks to key locations in Minneapolis. The initiative matches emerging native artists with established native arts, mentors in the fellowship that creates a variety of public artwork promoting native and indigenous storytelling. The mural at B'nai is the capstone for this year's emerging artists. Jerica Fountain, Raquel Banskak, and Summer Cohen. Thomasina Topair is the mentor for this work. And as you can see some of the artwork that's there, we're very excited about this as another great way that we're working with our artists locally and recognizing, of course, the indigenous history. Strategic direction C, implement quality youth and intergenerational programs. So we're talking about the music and movies kickoff series that's beginning right now in our park system. The Visitor Service Department Community Events team kicked off the summer in style on Memorial Day at Lake Harriet. Despite construction of the band shell, a temporary stage allowed for the show to go on. About 4,500 people were in attendance for the kickoff event that featured bands Maria and the Coins and Big Mike and The Function. I wish I would have seen that one. The beautiful weather and phenomenal performances made for an incredible afternoon and evening of live music in the park. The summer movie series also began on June 5th at Wade Park with the showing of Sonic the Hedgehog. Cycle in the Summer kicked off for its 3rd year with the popular Passport program, Bike Mechanic Series, and Cycling 101 programs. And that really excites me because one of the pillars that we've talked about in the park system is around cycling, everything cycling, and the park board being the place where people can ground themselves in all things biking. And we have some exciting things that are coming forward that we'll share with the board later. It's going to be really cool. So in addition to the daily movies and music in the summers of cycling, the team is preparing for Juneteenth on June 17th at Bethune Park, and the Laser Light Show on July 3rd at Boom Island Park. Your fourth strategic direction, D, care for parks, assets, and meet the evolving needs and practices. So this is the summer kickoff. We're going to talk about mowing, pools, restrooms, and drinking fountains. So to talk about mowing, asset management staff have been out mowing in full force for the past 4 weeks and working to get caught up for the strong start of the growing season for both grass and dandelions. This year's mowing operations will be added to the use of our GIS tracking system and operational dashboards. So very similar to our winter operations tool that we shared, this system will track areas that have been mowed and assist staff in ensuring that our parks are within expected levels of service for mowing. Asset management is still working on hiring for summer seasonal positions that would support our mowing and maintenance operations. So we're still, of course, trying to get, of course, the struggles with staff, trying to get more people to keep up with the volume of work that we have to do. So we're still working on that. So let's talk about pools and restrooms. So the holiday standard hours and dates I will share with you. Our regional pools are open from 8 a.m. to 10 o'clock p.m., April 15th through October 15th. Neighborhood parks are open from 10 o'clock a.m. to 9 o'clock p.m., Saturday of Memorial Weekend through Labor Day. Non-school site pools are now open to the public. 26 wading pools are currently open, and I know we have over 60, so a lot to go yet. The pool standard hours and dates, non-school sites are open from 10 o'clock a.m. to 9 o'clock p.m., Memorial Day through Labor Day, drained on September 5th. School sites are open from 10 o'clock a.m. to 9 o'clock p.m., open June 16th to September 4th, drained on September 5th. So of course, for pool hours, map, and current operating statuses, you go to our websites, and of course, www.minneapolisparks.org/activities-events/water-activities/wading pools. A lot of backslashes, but you'll get there. Drinking fountains. The drinking fountains have been all turned on for the year, and we have about 90% of them working without any issues. Let me repeat that, without any issues. That's pretty impressive. We usually have something. So this is a large project that goes hand in hand with the water turn-ons for our restrooms. The drinking fountains have winterization covers for the drains, and they're blown out every fall, and that process helps to extend the life of our drinking fountains. As we see current drinking fountains get to the end of their useful life, we are installing new drinking fountains at the same locations. So as an example, you'll see on the picture here an old fountain, of course, a new one installed. So we are paying attention to our assets and when they need repair, and asset management has done a phenomenal job around this work. The last one, strategic direction E, is steward our natural resources. I want to talk quickly about tree planting. So forestry crews are wrapping up the spring tree planting season, which began on April 17th. Over 9,600 new trees have been planted in just 7 weeks. That equates to over 270 trees per day. To get the trees planted as quickly as possible and increase survival, crews worked voluntarily 10 hours a day on Mondays through Thursdays. Because the rainfall had been so minimal during this time, the Forestry Department is now focused on watering new trees. This is done using 16 trucks with water tanks. This year's planting is the first year in over 10 years that the number of trees planted has exceeded the total removed. So from May 28th to June 3rd, we watered 2,136 trees. To date, we've watered 6,052 trees twice. So with that, I think that's all I have to share. Again, thank you for your time, commissioners, and I'll turn us back to you, President Forney.
Thank you. Any questions, Deputy Superintendent or Ringel?
President Forney, I don't have questions, but I did want to just make sure that there's an item that's been requested to come up from committee.
Thank you. I was going to announce that. I appreciate you mentioning that. Yes, from the Planning Committee, my understanding, okay, about the mural, so, good. So any reports then? Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Menz?
So with the new drinking fountains, is there any like new technology that'll keep them open longer, like when we replace them, or is it kind of the same timeline that we think is going to be around those drinking fountains?
President Forney, Commissioner Mance, I will punt this over to anyone in asset management that can respond to that. I'm not in, but I can
It's
get you,
fine.
I can also get
We
you that
can get
answer.
that answered later.
Yes.
Thanks.
Vice President Cruden?
Can you do me a favor? Can you highlight Juneteenth again? I think it went by pretty fast, and can you give the time and the location again so that the community can catch that?
President Forney and Vice President Smith, absolutely. Thank you for asking that again. So we're preparing for Juneteenth on June 17th at Bethune Park on June 17th.
From noon to 6.
Yes, from 9 to 6, apologize.
Okay.
Yes, 9 to 6.
And
Yes.
lots of entertainment.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Not seeing any other lights, and then on to reports of appointees from outside boards, commissions, and committees. Anybody have anything to report? I don't see any lights on. Wow, okay. All right, so we do have a public hearing at 5:45, but moving on to the consent business. If somebody move the consent agenda, please.
I'll move the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. On then to Administration and Finance, who is,
I would like to move Resolution 2023-96, resolution authorizing the execution of a purchase agreement with Keith and Barbara Ruddick for the acquisition of 1699 West 34th Street, Minneapolis, Minnesota, located adjacent to the Minneapolis Chain of Lakes Regional Park for $1,250,000 and other considerations.
Second.
any discussion? Not seeing any lights. This is a roll call vote we will need. So Secretary, if you could take the roll.
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Olson. Absent. Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner Menz.
Aye.
Commissioner Elper.
Aye.
Commissioner Abene.
Aye.
Vice President Crudup.
Aye.
President Forney.
Aye.
You have 8 ayes, 1 absent.
Thank you. Moving on to the next resolution.
I'd like to move Resolution 2023-90, resolution approving the construction cooperative agreement between Hennepin County and the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board for a segment of the East Bank Trail on Main Street between First Avenue Northeast and Hennepin Avenue Northeast, a part of the Central Mississippi Riverfront Regional Park, and further amending the 2023 Capital Improvement Program to allocate $199,958 from the Nicollet Island East Bank neighborhood portion of the Dibble-Hornstein Parkland Dedication Fund to complete the proposed project.
Second?
Any questions on that? Not seeing any. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. On to the next one.
Resolution 2023-104, resolution granting temporary construction easements to Hennepin County for a segment of the East Bank Trail as part of a construction cooperative agreement with the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board on Main Street between First Avenue Northeast and Hennepin Avenue Northeast, located within the Central Mississippi Riverfront Regional Park.
Second.
Thank you. Is this a roll call vote? Okay. Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Olson. Absent. Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner Menz.
Aye.
Commissioner Elper.
Aye.
Commissioner Abene.
Aye.
Vice President Crudup.
Aye.
President Forney.
Aye.
You have 8 ayes, 1 absent.
Thank you. That okay. Action carries. Next one.
Resolution, I'd like to move Resolution 2023-106, resolution approving a parking lease agreement with Aki Calhoun LLC for the parking lot at Lakeside Executive Center, part of which is located in Bede-Makaska Park as part of the Minneapolis Chain of Lakes Regional Park.
Second.
Not seeing, oh, Commissioner Alper.
Thank you, President Forney. Maybe I missed it, but, you know, I know how important parking is to the enterprise fund, and that was part of the background information. It's a 10-year lease we're approving, and I can't figure out how much they're paying us or we're paying them, and I I've looked at all the documents and I can't tell.
There is no monetary exchange? Somebody's coming, okay.
Commissioner Alper and President Forney, it's my understanding there is actually not a fee or a lease amount. It's a shared use, so it's sort of, I don't know, because it's shared, there's benefit to both parties.
So, but we own the underlying land
And
underneath the parking lot?
And they own part of the parking lot.
Part of the
so
parking lot.
We are able to use their portion and they're able to use ours.
Okay, that wasn't entirely clear. I didn't
I
catch
do
that. That's okay. That's, but I guess that was the main thing I wanted to check on. Yeah, thanks. That's all I've got.
Oh, Commissioner Bene, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, President Forney. I think also they are providing maintenance for the lot, so, for the whole lot. And it is about half of, if you look up Hennepin County maps, they're about half of the lot. Sorry for my frog voice.
No other questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying, sorry, roll call vote. Secretary, please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Olson. Absent. Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner Menz.
Aye.
Commissioner Alper.
Aye.
Commissioner Bene.
Aye.
Vice President Crudup.
Aye.
President Forney.
Aye.
You have 8 ayes, 1 absent.
Thank you. And Laura, resolution, please.
I'd like to move Resolution 2023-109, resolution approving a donation agreement between the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board and the City of Skate regarding a decorative railing panel for the skate park portion of the Phase 1 improvements project at Painter Park, a part of the Southwest Service area in Minneapolis.
Second.
Okay, I'm seeing a light. Commissioner Menz.
I couldn't find it in here. What is the amount that we're trying to raise for this, or that we're asking City of Skate to raise? My eyes are failing me, I'm sorry.
President Forney, Commissioner Menz, it's a $10,000 donation that is being raised for that decorative fence panel.
And that's already been raised and just going to come to us, or are they working on raising it now?
My understanding is that it's been raised, and that basically the next step is that they're working with a fabricator to actually come up with the panel to implement when the project's under construction.
So they're involved in the creation of the panel?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Seeing no other questions or lights, excuse me, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. In the interest that we will be having open time here in a minute, instead of going into, no, okay, I'll go ahead with, what's our next resolution? Somebody would read that, please.
I'll move Resolution 2023-113, resolution extending the term of a previously granted temporary easement and an associated construction permit granted to the Metropolitan Council through Resolution 2022-209, related to the construction of a tunnel at the Kenilworth corridor within and near portions of Minneapolis Chain of Lakes Regional Park as part of the Southwest Light Rail Transit / Green Line Extension Project through September 29th, 2023.
Okay, hearing a second. Not seeing any lights. All those in favor, please signify by saying.
It's a roll call vote.
Oh, sorry, sorry. Okay.
Point of order, roll call vote.
Thank you. Secretary, would you please take roll call?
Commissioner Thompson.
Pass.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Olson. Absent. Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner Menz.
Aye.
Commissioner Alper.
Aye.
Commissioner Bene.
Aye.
Vice President Crudup.
Aye.
President Forney.
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
You have 8 ayes, 1 absent.
Motion carries. Okay, can we get the next one in, next resolution? Oh, no, it's Sorry, it's 5:30. Okay, so I'm going to read to everybody the open time, and I just want to remind everybody that we do have a time certain hearing at 5:45. Anyway, thanks to all of you who want to share your thoughts and ideas with us during open time. Before we start, I want to provide an abbreviated version of the open time board rules. All individuals wishing to speak may call in before noon the day of the meeting to be placed on the agenda, or can sign up at the board meeting prior to the start of the open time. I will be calling on people on the sign-up list only, and we have 13 people. Open time for public input shall not exceed a total of 15 minutes, with a time limit to be allocated by myself, the president. Please watch the timer right up here to be considerate of others here to speak, and stay within your allotted time. During open time, public testimony will be given without debate, and only clarifying questions from the board will be allowed. Two types of items not appropriate for open time in order to protect the privacy of all individuals. Those are pending litigation and personnel issues. Please refrain from commenting on specific personnel issues. We will not tolerate discriminatory and/or harassing words directed at anyone. So please ensure that all comments you make tonight comply with the policy. The board made the decision many years ago to operate under Robert Rules of Order. Under Robert's Rules of Order, the ceding of time to another person is not allowed. So only those signed up to speak may only speak for their own allotted amount of time. We also request that each speaker provide his or her name and address. Being that there are 13 people, I'm going to give each person 1 minute. I'm sorry, being our 15-minute limit. And like I say, at 5:45, we do have a public hearing. The first person is Matt Smith. After that, get yourself queued up, is Mark DeYoung. Matt, are you here?
Hello there. Appreciate the time. So I'm a parent, Minneapolis resident. I have 3 kids, one of which is currently in softball. I'm a booster board member for the Minneapolis Southwest softball team, as well as a former member of 612 board, softball organization. So I plead a couple different things today. One, I want to plead for help with safety around our fields. We have a lot of softball players who are out there playing, working as hard as they can, and we have safety issues on some of the fields, which limits the fields that we can play on. Safety issues of things like holes in the outfield. We have fence links that are actually jetting out that can actually hit the kids. We don't have lids on a lot of the dugouts that can protect them from foul balls, including short backstops, which can protect people walking by, as well as the players, fans, and whatnot. We have posts that are in the field where pitchers go in and can actually hit that post, which can be jarring to their bodies as well. Is that 3 minutes?
Yep, no, only 1 minute.
Oh, 1 minute,
Okay,
sorry.
just a reminder, everybody, only 1 minute, I apologize. Mark DeYoung, and then after that is Lily Costner. Mark, if you want to come forward, your name and address, appreciate it.
Good evening, Commissioner Forney and board members. My name is Mark DeYoung. My wife and I are Minneapolis residents, and we have 3 kids that attend Minneapolis public schools and participate in high school sports and a variety of youth sports around the city. I am here tonight to impress the significance of Resolution 119 and to encourage Minneapolis Park Board and Minneapolis Public Schools to work together to identify and create multiple dedicated fast-pitch softball fields across the city. Some of the reasons why Matt gave for reasons of safety. I think the primary reason that comes to mind for me is for reasons of equity, given the fact that there are no fast-pitch softball fields across the city. I find that, at least I know my daughter, finds that devaluing and discouraging to not see some sports fields dedicated to one of the sports that she plays and enjoys here at school. Examples, for instance, Boston also has a pitching mound that is not set up for fast pitch girls. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Lily Costner, and then after that is Jessica Costner.
Hi, my name is Lily Costner, and I'm a 612 player, and I've lived in Minneapolis and attended MPS my whole life. Thank you, Park Board, for the time to speak today. My parents made sure I read about what was going on with the inequity when it comes to softball fields in Minneapolis so that I could figure out on my own what I wanted to say. So here's what I think. I don't want to lose friends and teammates to other cities or softball clubs because of these inequities. Softball has given me lifelong friends and memories, and some of those could be cut short if decision makers in our community don't prove to us that we are worth investing in just as much as boys. It's crazy to me that we have to play on fields designed for boys and that our coaches and players have to spend time making sure the dimensions are right for our practices and games. We should be working on throwing and fielding and hitting, not learning how to measure the distances between bases and the pitching mound. With no dugout coverings for protection from foul balls or hot summer sun, it can be brutal out there. I think I can speak for my teammates when I say that we don't care about having the fanciest fields. That won't make us love softball more than we already do, but we care about staying safe and not feeling less important than boys.
Thank you, Lily. Jessica Costner and then Tim Shields.
Well, that's a tough one to follow, so I think I'm just going to give one anecdote. So our team of 10U softball players has practice after this meeting, and I think harping on the safety issue is of paramount importance as a coach and a parent. So we literally at this practice are going to be working on some base running things like rounding a base, sliding, running through first. And I can tell you for certain that we will go to the field and the bases will be at the wrong distances. So we will put down flimsy rubber bases at the correct distances, and which is a whole other safety concern in and of itself, with players prone to slip and fall when the bases move, twist an ankle, or any number of other issues. And it's not hypothetical. This happens, and it's devastating. And I think also just saying softball is without question growing in Minneapolis. We have a thriving pipeline of young teams with numbers comparable or in many cases bigger than most suburban club organizations that have been around decades longer, and it's going to continue to grow.
Thank you. Tim Shields, and then after that is Ellery. I think it's Ullers. I'm sorry.
Thank you. My name is Tim Shields. I did submit a written thing online, so you'll have that, but I'm the founder of Pine to Prairie Softball, which is the nation's largest 18-plus women's fast pitch softball league in the country, and we operate out of here. And I will just tell you that it is just a shame and almost a crime that Minneapolis is as far behind as you guys are in providing softball fields of the appropriate distances, 60 feet, 43 feet, 40 feet, and the 200 to 220 foot fields that many cities have and that we do not have in Minneapolis. And that needs to be corrected. We have a $25 million capital budget here. I appreciate Commissioner Thompson's resolution greatly. We are in full support of it. I think the 2028 timeline's a little long. It seems like it could be done quicker. But please go out, get some fences, and help these girls. And we'd be happy to play in Minneapolis, but we just don't have a field we can play on. Thank you.
Thank you. Ellery. And Carl Ullers. Ellery, and then Carl.
Hi, my name's Ellery Elfers. I just finished my second season playing for Washburn, and I've been playing for 612 since I was in 4th grade. But this past season at Washburn, we had maybe 3 home games because our home field is Boston, and it is inadequate to play for because it's dangerous, because of when I pitch, there are metal spikes for the other distances, both behind the pitching mound and in front of it. And multiple times I've tripped on them. I take time out of my warm-ups, my entire team does, to fix what we have been promised, which is the pitching mound at the right distance and the bases at the right distance, but instead we take time out of our warm-ups and fix what we were promised and move them. And sometimes we can't ensure that the bases in the pitching mound are fully in because we don't have the resources to do that because we're not on the park board.
Thank you, Ellery. Carl, and then Delaney Ellers.
Hi, I'm Carl Ulfers. I am live at 339 West Elmwood Place in Minneapolis. I'm here representing the 10U Royal team, which is why these two are up here with me. And so Dwayne's going to speak next. So I'm going to be reading an open letter that they actually wrote together. We are the class of 2030 and 2032. We, the 612 Royal, play 10U fast pitch softball, and we want to stay playing our favorite sport in Minneapolis until we graduate. Right now, there are many barriers in our path, and it feels hard for us to imagine sticking with our sport with a positive and good attitude. We see our older sisters and friends get kicked off their field so adults can play. Or when we think about how much time we spend measuring out mounds and bases so we can practice, our athletic future feels uncertain. We are grateful for Commissioner Becca Thompson's proposal, and we really hope you will consider her proposal for our space to add at least 4 and possibly 6 fast pitch softball fields into the system. Our future as fast pitch athletes depends on this, and we'd love to see the MPR system lead the way. Here are some of the words from Delaney. So Delaney, I'll pick you up. There you go, kid.
From Joey D, age 10. Having so many nice baseball fields all around my neighborhood and no fast pitch fields make me feel like my sport isn't important. It gives me the message that girls don't matter enough to put money in. Delaney off with age 10. When I watch my sister's high school games not finished because all adults drinking beer get to play instead, I get so mad. Why aren't there lines on the field where they belong? And why do we have to spend time moving the bases and pitching lumber instead of spending time warming up? It's dumb. Chloe W., age 9. It makes me so frustrated to see that other cities have really great fields, and we hardly have a place to practice, and we don't have enough fields to invite other teams to play in our city. Our team is the future of Minneapolis fast pitch, and I want us to grow up being part of our sport, not remember that we always had to measure our softball fields and baseball fields. The field...
Thank you so much, Delaney. Michael Schillen, I'm sorry, I can't read it all, and Christopher Miller is after that. Michael, are you here? Sorry.
Hello, my name is Mike Vandershern. I am a vice president at 612 Fast Pitch in Minneapolis and also a Minneapolis resident. I would like to thank Commissioner Thompson for advancing a plan to address the inequities and the needs of our fast pitch athletes in Minneapolis. I appreciate the fact that this plan is action-oriented and will put in place some measures to help the high school season next year by having temporary fences. I like that it shows leadership with respect to the Title IX issues that were identified and in the current complaint. And lastly, the model of youth sports is changing, and Thompson's plan mentions the need for partners, and I just want to say, speaking on behalf of 612 Fast Pitch, that we will be here to partner with MPRB to advance the needs of the athletes in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Christopher Miller, and then after that is Mike Tate.
Thank you. I'm a resident of the Whittier neighborhood and a near daily user of the Midtown Greenway. I'm here today to express support for the access path, the ADA compliant access path through the Sioux Line Garden. This is for 3 reasons. One is that the path is never great, it's just wood chips. Wintertime turns a merely inaccessible path into a treacherous path. Reason number 2 is that there's only 2 access paths between the highway and Lindale. And when the city begins its reconstruction of Nicollet, one of those paths will go away. Number 3, the federal grant has been extended, but only for a year. So it's very important to take advantage of this while the grant is there. If the goal is to maintain convenient and equitable access to the Greenway, this project is a necessity. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, and then after that is Pam Newman.
My name is Mike Tate, Minneapolis. If y'all could just take a minute and ask yourself, or bow your head and ask this question. Now that you've done that, do me a favor. Many of y'all know me. Many of you have got elected using this motto, hanging out, taking pictures with Coach and his children. And all I'm asking y'all to do is to look inside your heart and ask this question. Many of these people have told you that equity is poor in this building and in the school board. You're not looking at this. Please put some policies together, y'all, and hold them accountable to it.
Pam Newman, and then Katie McCabe, and then we'll have to wrap it up for our public
Hi,
hearing.
Pam Newman, Minneapolis. I find it disturbing, I'm standing here 50 years later, still fighting for field access for my granddaughter. It breaks my heart, it makes me mad. She wants to play softball, she's a good softball player. This whole program deserves a chance. And if you want any of us, of our girls, to go on to the College World Series, which is going on right now in Oklahoma, it's not going to happen unless you get behind this and start supporting these girls. Just do something positive.
Katie McCabe.
Good evening, Park Board. My name is Katie McCabe, and I'm currently a coach for Club 612-14U. I am very proud to have been born and raised in Minneapolis as well. And growing up playing park ball at Pershing, my pride came from being and growing up on Minneapolis fields. As I grew up, I played for Club 612, and they became my family, and my pride for the city was reborn again. However, my pride has been overtaken with shame ever since a team would come play from outside of the city onto our home fields. Even the basic expectations of a softball field were hit or miss. We would guess whether fields would be chalked. We would walk the fields before games, throwing out rocks that could do some serious damage. Improper distance of pitching mounds are a danger to the pitchers as well as unfair to the girls who want only to play the sport that they love. Outfielders surveying the grass for holes and drain covers that gone unnoticed could lead to serious injury. The opportunities that 612 offers are irreplaceable. Because of this, I was able to sign to play collegiate softball along with other members of my 18U team.
Thank you all. Being that a great deal of you did have interests or concerns regarding the softball fields, I would like you to direct you to our interim superintendent, assistant superintendent, Mimi Kalb, and she has her card that she can give to you that if you'd like to speak with her further, you can contact her through that. So as I say, I'm closing now the open time, and then I will open up then the public hearing. And do we have anybody for the public hearing? We do, okay. Okay, so as far as our public hearing, I am going to speak of that. And I just need also to mention to all of you who are here regarding the fields that will be in a committee meeting, which is towards the end of our agenda. So it's probably not going to be around for, this conversation won't be for another hour or so. Anyway, public hearing rules. Thanks to all of you who want to share your thoughts and ideas with us during tonight's public hearing. Before we start the committee, would like to provide, the board would like to provide an abbreviated version of the public hearing rules. All individuals wishing to speak can sign up prior to the start of the public hearing today, June 6th at 5:45. If you are not signed up to testify yet, please do so at the entrance to the boardroom. This public hearing will have a time allotted by myself we will do 3 minutes each per person. Please watch the timer up here to be considerate of others, here to speak and stay within your allotted time. During the public hearing, public testimony will be given without debate, and only clarifying questions from the board will be allowed. We will not tolerate discriminatory or harassing words directed at anyone, so please ensure that all comments you make tonight comply with the policy. This board made the decision many years ago to operate under Robert's Rules of Order. Under Robert's Rules of Order, the ceding of time to another person is not allowed. We also request that each person provide his or her name and address. As the president of this meeting, I will call for additional testifiers at the end of the meeting, hearing 3 times before the hearing closes. This is regarding the naming of the trail of the east bank of Mississippi River between 8th Avenue and Northeast and approximately 16th Avenue Northeast in the Above the Falls Regional Park, the Riker Trail. We have 3 people who would like to speak, and yes, Secretary Ringel.
President Forney, would you like me to give a presentation?
Oh, my apologies.
It's okay.
Yes, please do.
Okay. President Forney, Commissioners, we do have another naming nomination in front of you. We've had quite a few recently. So I will do my best to try to hit points that maybe you've not heard before, as well as give you the critical aspects of this particular nomination. We do have Rick Recker's daughter here, Stephanie, and I'm going to say Z-Bar? Okay, very good, got that. And she'll step up in just a moment to give you a few comments as well. This nomination is for the East Bank Trail, or the trail along the East Bank. We received it on February 6th, 2023, and it is a nomination by Rick Recker's children. And Rick Recker has passed away, so this is in his memory. We have, as you are aware, several notifications we need to make when we make a nomination. So we have done all of these nominations, as well as this one sits in a regional park, so we have to reach out to the Met Council, we have to reach out to SHPO, and we have to reach out to the Historic Preservation Committee as well. So some details, this trail opened in 2016, however, this route was used by runners, I think quite frequently, even before there was a trail in that space. It is on the east bank of the Mississippi River. It is not a trail that's currently named, so it doesn't have a name that this is replacing. If anything, it would have a naming convention similar to a trail within a park, and so it typically gets that name, but nothing formal that this would be replacing. And it essentially extends from Plymouth Avenue up to the rail line bridge, just a little bit north of us. Rick Recker was the president of the USA Track and Field in Minnesota, worked with both the Minneapolis Parks and the Minneapolis schools in engaging youth in athletics, running several running events and running programs throughout the system. Also had some employment with the park board, as including being a lifeguard at some of the beaches, and is well known in the running community, as well as the person who used to certify the courses. So if you're a runner and you do road distances, you know that those have to be certified. So he was one of the few people in the area who was qualified to certify those courses. This is some information that I don't share in all of them, but this is kind of the important piece of what's in front of you. So we do public hearings. We do 2, one now and one about 2 months before the actual naming occurs. And then you take an action, and that action is when you actually then approve whether or not you want that name to occur. And there are some guidance in the policy in terms of how you think about that naming, in terms of whether or not the individual, family, or group that is the name is being requested for has made significant contributions to the system. And the policy actually encourages you to think about other similarly named assets in terms of how those comparisons might be. Within our system, we don't actually have many trails named after individuals. If they are, it's something like Theodore Worth Trail within Theodore Worth Park, but the intention wasn't already there to name the trail. That is a connection to the name of the overall park. You will be basing your decision eventually on what you hear from the community and what you hear from staff in terms of recommendations, as well as what you might hear from the Metropolitan Parks, the Minneapolis Heritage Preservation Commission, and the State Historical Preservation Office. And I can tell you all of those groups have already responded, and they have no issue with this naming. When we think about the naming process, of course, we're here tonight. We have actually one key commissioner who isn't here. We have Commissioner Olson, who is not here. And saying that, we actually will not be able to proceed with this.
That's right. All
Okay, so
at-large commissioners need to be in
So we
attendance.
need all 3 at-large commissioners as well as the district commissioner, and we are missing an at-large commissioner. So we will, maybe you would hear the comments tonight, and then we'll regroup and do an additional hearing. We would proceed then toward a second hearing in December of 2024, especially naming after a person, it requires 2 years. And then you have a final vote anticipated probably for February 19th, 2025. I think at this point, before I talk about other pending namings, I would invite Stephanie to come forward and share a little bit about the nomination.
Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you. Good evening. The emotions of this moment are very strong because naming this trail was one of my father's life goals and dying wishes, and his death is, of course, fresh for us. I'm Stephanie Zebarth, his middle child, my brother Rick Recker III, my sister Stacy Brooks, and my brother's sister, my aunt, Mary Zapatillo are here tonight. I'm speaking on behalf of us and his other loved ones. Stacy and Ricky are, like my dad, runners. I am a lifelong, very slow, off and on jogger, appreciating the fresh air, the solitude, the endorphins. Our dad really impressed upon us all these things, and he also impressed upon us a love for the park system, which I have definitely passed on to the next generation, as they have too. We have very early memories of spending time at many parks, most notably Longfellow in Minnehaha, a lot of good childhood memories there. We also have very early memories of attending races with our dad, helping serve and cheering, watching all sorts of fun award ceremonies and significant relationships built. Countless of these experiences involved the Minneapolis and other park systems. Our dad was a lifelong resident of Minneapolis with just a very brief stint in the western suburbs when he was very briefly married to my mother. He loved Minneapolis, and he ran the trails, most notably the one we're discussing tonight, regardless of weather conditions. Even during the shutdown brought on by COVID-19 and the heartbreaking riots of the summer of 2020, Dad got out of bed before the sun, laced up his running shoes, and ran this trail. He ran it almost daily for 30 years. In fact, he literally actually created the path by running it day after day, month after month, year after year. As she said, there was initially no trail. He literally created the trail. He told us many adventures through the years of running along this path, and he proudly kept us and his grandchildren informed of its development. My kids have walked this trail more than once during their annual visits from Pennsylvania. They posed for photos with their Papa Rick along this path, one which was prominently displayed with his obituary and another at his after party, which served as his celebration of life. Many people run this path as part of their grieving process, missing my dad. It is already unofficially known as the Rick Recker Trail. There are others here today who will likely comment on our dad's truly incalculable contribution to the running community. So many awards that weren't even listed there, positions he held, ways he served, 100,000 plus miles run, courses mapped and certified, athletes encouraged, awards earned and bestowed. I would like to point out something a little more subjective though. One of the things I most appreciated about my dad was that he encouraged everyone to be the type of athlete that most suited them. He encouraged me, the overweight child, in sensitive, practical ways, never making me feel less than for not being as fit as the rest. He encouraged world-class athletes and absolute beginners, lifelong friends and strangers. In fact, my son-in-law, who lives in downtown Minneapolis, was talking with a maintenance worker at his building the other day and found out that my dad had coached this maintenance man to run his first marathon. So we just run into his influence wherever we go. He believed in the value of running. He knew the power of exercise, being outdoors, connecting with others. He knew it because he believed in it himself. Running, in some ways, saved his life as it helped him combat the trials that he faced and the loneliness he often faced living alone for 40 years. So out of gratitude, he gave his life to the running community. Every day he gave to the running community. Until he could literally no longer leave his condo, he gave to the running community. When the cancer was so advanced that it was bulging out of his stomach very visibly, he covered it with his notorious Gophers windbreaker and headed out the door to officiate at another track meet, even if he could only handle serving for one event. And the very last time he left his condo, he was gaunt, jaundiced, and struggling so much with pain in his cognition because of how advanced the cancer was. But he went down to his building's library and with the help of friends, received the Grandma's Marathon Hall of Fame award that is now prominently displayed in my home. So he wished the trail to be named the Wrecker Trail as a family legacy. All of us unanimously agree it should be the Rick Wrecker Trail because he is the one who created it and earned the legacy within the park system and the running community of Minneapolis, Minnesota. We heartily thank you and we humbly thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Stephanie.
All right, thank you. We have only one addition to the pending naming and actions items, and this was a reminder today of Phyllis Kahn should be on this list as well, and that was part of a 2017 resolution, and thank you to Council Rice for bringing that to our attention. All right.
Thank you. So I will now proceed then with the public hearing, and we have 3 people who would like to speak. Danny Ripka, after that is Lisa McIntyre. So Danny, if you'd like to come forward.
Hi, my name is Danny Ripka, and I was a great friend of Rick Wrecker's. I've been running in Minneapolis since my first marathon here in 1982. And Rick and I know Rick has done so much for the running community. He would put on running at the Metrodome for $1, 2 nights a week in the winter. Rick also has done more races than any other person in the state. He would run 2 to 3 races a week, and he kept track of all of his races and his medals, and he lived right downtown at the towers here. And so when I started running, I wanted to know what to do, and I wanted to become a good runner. And I took a lot of Rick's recommendations and ran with Rick regularly downtown. I'd park down by the towers, and then we'd go along the river. There were not even roads back when we were running through the slick and through the trails and along the river. And we would do this year after year, and we even named, the geese would come back year after year, and there's this one particular goose that we called Big Butt. And Big Butt would always come back year after year, and then we'd get to know the homeless people. We got to know the people at the park board using the bathrooms, and we took time to get to know people and enjoy our runs. But Rick was really influential in the running community. Everybody knew Rick, and you had to call him Rick Wrecker. And I've got lots of stories with Rick, and I'm here for the running community to let you all know Rick was the biggest, nicest, he's done more for running in this community than anyone ever has. And we even named that trail a dirt trail, the Rick Wrecker Trail, and we were naming bridges after ourselves. But I got to be in on it, and we call it the Rip Hecker, because my name's Ripka Wrecker, and we were already, because we had done these courses so many times. But anyway, Rick was really influential in the running community, and it'd be an honor for the running community and his family to see if you guys could possibly name that path after him. That would be just super. And thanks for all the new pickleball cards in town too. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Lisa McIntyre, and then after that is Doran Clark. Lisa?
Hello, Lisa McIntyre of Minneapolis. Happy Global Running Day. I met Rick through group runs at Mill City Running in Northeast over here. His commitment to providing safe and accessible paths for running and biking along the river has had a butterfly effect on the entire running community, but also Minneapolis as a whole. Because of these paths forged by Rick and his close friends, I personally have met my best friends through running, and I've also been able to support Mile in My Shoes, which is a nonprofit that provides running resources and community to folks experiencing homelessness or recent release from incarnation. At Rick's afterlife party, his family very graciously had all of his trophies from everything from the local 1 mile to the Cornfest 5K available as gifts. And I chose the Cornfest 5K trophy, and it sits on my office desk downtown. Naming this section of the path the Rick Recker Trail would be not only a compliment, but truly the highest honor to Rick.
Dorn?
Chair Forney and Board, Dorn Clark, 2201 22nd Avenue in Northeast Minneapolis, Wyndham Park. Naming a trail for Rick Recker through our parks is good and appropriate, as Rick and the Minneapolis Park and Rec Board share the same vision and values. You promote equity, Rick promoted equity. He quietly and consistently dismantled barriers that prevented historically underrepresented communities from being involved in running. Through, you heard his innovation of bringing running to the Metrodome. He made sure it was $1 and you only needed to bring cash. It got you in. It's a little more expensive at the new stadium now. But Rick, like you, innovated. Above all, Rick led and built organizations that built the foundation of Minneapolis running communities. That's the core of our parks. We build and you build communities. He saw how our trails, our parks, and running brought people together, and broadly talked specifically about how our running and biking trails tie the community together. I think that's part of why he hit the same trails over and over to show how these trails brought and bring neighborhoods together. Rick's running communities abound here in Minneapolis and the Twin Cities. As a Roosevelt resident or graduate, he took pride in finding and building opportunities for neighborhood kids to race on that track. He was the longtime president of USATF Minnesota. He was so influential that Minnesota Distance Running Association named him to their Hall of Fame twice, because why not? For me, I knew Rick through Mill City Running and the Friday running groups. Specifically, 6:30 Friday mornings we gather for Flapjack Friday. In summers, there's 100, 150 of us. In the winter, maybe only 50 people run the trails. But as part of the tradition, we talk about each of the routes. And we, well, have named parts of the routes after Rick. And so we would go through talking through the routes. You first cross the Hennepin Bridge. Then you are prohibited to go on the next bridge unless your name is Rick. And everyone shouts Rick. It's part of just how Rick, we knew that Rick owned the trails, and we would name pieces of those trails and the bridges after Rick. It was because Rick brought us together. Rick made our lives better, and he made all runners' lives better, whether you knew him or not. Rick is worthy to receive the naming of the trail, and I ask that you, when you can, pass this along. Thank you.
Thank you all. I will now close the public hearing. How we navigate, though, going forward, as far as being that we have missed, we need to have all three at-large commissioners, plus the district commissioner. Being we are missing one, I will have to navigate how we move this forward. But thank you all for your comments. And so we will now move back to our regular agenda. And we were going to Resolution 2023. Oh, excuse me. Secretary Ringel. Oh, you did? Okay. Resolution 2023, 112. Anybody wants to read that for me, please?
I'll move Resolution 2023-112, a resolution granting an amendment to temporary construction easements to City of Minneapolis for storm sewer project at Mill Ruins Park, located within the Central Mississippi Riverfront Regional Park.
Second. Thank you. Any discussion on this item? Any discussion? Okay. On that, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That action carries. Okay, we then,
Roll call.
Point of order, are you requesting a roll call?
oh, thank you. Okay, so it's a roll call? Okay, thank you. Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Olson. Commissioner Musich.
Aye.
Commissioner Menz. Aye. Commissioner Alper.
Aye.
Commissioner Bene.
Aye.
Vice President Crudup.
Aye.
President Forney.
Aye.
You have 8 ayes, 1 absent.
Thank you. That action carries. So, being that if in committee, this one action does carry, we will come back to the board. So I will recess the full board, and we will move now then to operations and environment. And I just want to encourage people to understand that we have operations, environment, then we have legislative and governmental committee, and then we have the recreation committee. So it may not be for at least another hour or so. Thank you.
May I start?
It is online though. We are live online if people do need to leave.
Thank you. Yes.
May I begin my committee
Please.
now?
Yep.
Thank you, President Forney. On behalf of the Operations and Environment Committee, time being 6:11, I will call this committee to order. Secretary Ringgold, can you please take the roll?
Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
Commissioner Alper.
Here.
Commissioner Bene.
Present.
Vice Chair Menz.
Present.
Chair Musich.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, I would entertain a motion to approve our agenda.
So moved.
Thank you. Are there any is there any discussion of the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. We now have an agenda. Could I get a motion to approve our minutes
Yes.
from May 24th, 2023?
Yes, I would like to approve the minutes, or make a motion to approve the minutes from May 24th, 2023.
Thank you so much. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. This evening, we have a study report item in front of us. It is number 2023-60, Roberts Bird Sanctuary and MMCD treatments discussion. With us this evening, we have James Schaefer, our Natural Resources Supervisor, and Alex Carlson, who I believe is here with us from the Mosquito Control District. I'm hoping you have a presentation for us, and if so, please take it away. And while they're pulling up the presentation, this item is before us this evening as a direct response to questions that commissioners had around how the program works, what the deciding factors are, what we could do to further clarify our relationship between the Park Board and the Mosquito Control District. So that is why we are having this discussion this evening. And now I'll stop talking because you look like you're ready.
I'm ready.
All right.
Thank
great.
you, commissioners. Again, my name is James Schaefer, Natural Resources Supervisor. And I'm here to introduce to you Alex Carlson with the Metropolitan Mosquito Control District. You may recall last July we had a presentation from them about the work that they do within the Minneapolis region in general and on our properties in specific. Here today we're going to try to refresh you on a little of those and also kind of continue the discussion between our agreements between the Park Board and MMCD. Since about 2004, MPRB and MMCD have had an informal agreement with regards to the work done on MPRB property. Currently, MPRB and MMCD are working towards creating a formal agreement of that work. So today we would like to kind of begin the process of identifying what the board's priorities for an agreement of this nature would be, as well as the general refreshment and discussion of Roberts in particular tonight. So with that, I'll hand it over to Alex.
Thank you, Commissioners, and thank you for having me back again this year. And for this presentation, I do have a quick summary on the points that were covered last year. I'm going to go through them pretty quickly, but if you have any points of clarification or questions, don't hesitate to ask. But again, my name is Alex Carlson. I'm the Public Affairs Manager with the Metropolitan Mosquito Control District. So at MMCD, we practice IPM, Integrated Pest Management. Basically, the founding of our organization is that mosquito control decisions are driven by data, by surveillance, by science. We do take customer calls and public opinion into consideration, but the main driving factor is our entomologists and then the data-based decision making, and it's overviewed by our technical advisory board that reviews our practices every year and makes suggestions and operational decisions for us going forward. Just a review of mosquitoes in Minnesota. We have 52 species in Minnesota. The life cycle is the eggs hatch usually following rain. They're in the water for about a week before they come out, about 5 days as the larva and about 2 days as the pupa, and then they come out as the emerging mosquitoes. And an important point is that we have two main types of mosquitoes. We have the floodwater mosquitoes, which are the more common. Those are the more rain dependent, so they lay their eggs on the edge of a pond or a wetland, and then they wait for the rain to come. That triggers the hatch. But then we also have a standing water mosquito, or the Culex species, which they lay their eggs in already existing standing water, whether it's in man-made containers or shallow ponds, wetlands, areas that contain water year-round. Now, those are the species that are more likely to carry diseases in our part of the country, West Nile virus being the main one, but there are other diseases as well. The Aedes species can carry some diseases, mainly dog heartworm, and then there are some invasive Aedes species from other parts of the country that do carry diseases, but those have not established in Minnesota. We're doing surveillance to monitor to make sure that they don't. When we do mosquito control, there are three primary methods. There's the larval control, which is treating them in the larval stage. There's the adult control, which is treating the adult mosquitoes that are flying around. And then there's habitat reduction, or reducing the breeding sites in the form of reducing man-made containers, recycling tires, and then working with cities and public works to help reduce existing mosquito structures as best as we can. We consider ourselves a larval control organization for a couple reasons, but the majority of the work we do is at the larval stage, treating mosquitoes in the larval stage. One, because the products that we use for larval mosquito control are the safest products. The products are specifically designed to target mosquito larvae with no or minimal impacts to other aquatic insects and no public health impacts to humans, pets, and other mammals. So they're very safe products, and they're very targeted and formulated to just get the mosquitoes that we're targeting. The other thing is it's easier to get to mosquitoes when they're in their breeding site versus when they're in the adult stage and they're flying all over, and they could be in any harborage in the area. And then also we have a geographical advantage because we have such a wide service area. We can do widespread larval control and have a big impact on mosquito population versus individual cities that have mosquito control programs. They do some larval control, but it's only going to be as effective as the neighboring towns are, where mosquitoes will fly over from neighboring cities. We consider larval control our proactive treatment. So our IPM plan focuses on the proactive larval control using materials specifically designed to control mosquito larvae. And each site has its own determining factors for what we use to treat that site. So we have three main active ingredients that we use. BTI is our most commonly used ingredient. It's a naturally occurring soil bacteria. It attaches to mosquito larvae's gut lining when they're actively feeding, and that's how it's controlled them. We also use methoprene, which is an insect growth inhibitor. This works by disrupting the mosquito development and preventing it from pupating. So the larva remains in the food web. It doesn't kill them. They just are unable to mature to the pupal stage. And then spinosad is kind of the new kid on the block. It's an organic larvicide with extended control. It's also a soil bacterium. Similar to BTI, just has extended release and controls mosquitoes for a longer period of time. A little bit about West Nile virus. So we do have West Nile virus in Minnesota. We have had it in Hennepin County pretty much every year since it was established in 2002. This is spread by the Culex mosquitoes. Birds are the vertebrate hosts, so birds will be infected with West Nile virus. They'll spread it among themselves. A mosquito will bite an infected bird, and then that same mosquito will bite a horse or human, and that's how the disease gets spread to the human population. Most birds are not harmed, but there is some mortality in birds, especially corvids, ravens, blue jays, and crows will get sick and die from West Nile virus. We test samples of adult mosquitoes, so when we're doing our adult mosquito collections, we separate out the Culex species, and we have a vector ecologist on staff, Kirk Johnson, who will actually take them to his lab, grind them up, and test them for the presence of West Nile virus. So we can usually know when the disease is in an area before it becomes a problem. There were 9 positive samples from Minneapolis in 2022 of West Nile virus, or 2022 of West Nile virus. I mentioned our study last year. I just put a couple slides in that because the big concern with mosquito control is impacts on non-target insects. Most people want mosquitoes controlled for public health reasons, for nuisance reasons, and for a variety of reasons. But there is always a concern that we're doing treatments that are going to harm other insects that are beneficial or impact the food web for anything that could potentially rely on mosquitoes as a primary food source. And so a scientific peer review panel did a study this was throughout the 90s, a 10-year study in Wright County where sites were treated and sites were not treated, and it was reviewed by students and scientists to determine what the impact was. It was found that there was a significant reduction in mosquito larvae at the treated sites versus the non-treated sites, but there was no harm to amphibians. Growth and survival was not affected, even at doses higher than the prescribed. There was no significant difference in macroinvertebrates or zooplankton in treated versus untreated sectors. And then the bird census showed that there was no difference in the breeding bird populations, even in the years when insect populations were lower. The full report, it's a lengthy one, but it can be found on our website, on our publications page, along with all the other reports that we've done over the many years that we've been around as an organization. Questions have come up about legislative authority. So Minnesota State Statute 473704 is what gives us the right to access property for mosquito surveillance and control. Individual residents can request to opt out of mosquito control activities on their private property. Exceptions to these requests are made in case of vector-borne disease response. So if there's an imminent risk of vector-borne disease, we may communicate with the resident and make sure that we're taking care of that problem. And then cities, counties, and park boards are the proprietors of land, and so we work with different organizations to ensure transparency and clear communication. Sometimes that means putting agreements in place. Sometimes it just means making sure we have some clear operation procedures in place. So with MMCD and MPRB, we've been reviewing the need for a formal agreement, and we're in the process of establishing a formal agreement, having some great conversations with Jeremy and James and Deb and other excellent MPRB staff. For what we're doing currently is we post signage and we notify park board staff prior to any helicopter treatments in an area. We have not conducted adult mosquito control treatments on MPRB grounds for at least 10 years, probably longer than that. I just didn't look back to see when the first one was, but I know it's been at least 10 years. And then we regularly communicate with MPRB staff to address questions from the public or communicate about potential new breeding habitat that's popping up and various things like that. Some information on the Roberts Bird Sanctuary. There are 5 productive mosquito breeding sites within the bird sanctuary. It is a large wetland with standing water that exists even in dry years. There's 2 sites that are usually treated by helicopter, by the air. They're large enough to merit a helicopter treatment, and then 3 that are usually treated by ground. There have been West Nile vectors found within these sites. This year we've been asked to suspend treatment, so there's only been 1 pre-hatch treatment, and that was on the ground sites. That was done in early spring, but there have been no treatments done since then. But we have been doing surveillance, and surveillance will continue to monitor for mosquito abundance and check for West Nile virus vectors. And then we're continuing to explore solutions with park board staff to handle the location going forward in the most effective and safe way. And with that, I wanted to open up to questions and comments. And part of me being here is I really want to understand, as we're working with park board staff to establish an agreement, what are the commissioners' concerns, or what you want to have as a primary focus when we're establishing this connection?
Thank you very much, Mr. Carlson. Wow, I'm seeing no lights, which I find really hard to believe with the number of people that asked me to have this. Commissioner Benny.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair Musich. So I think that this was great, and I remembered, so I would have passed the test because I remembered quite a bit of this from last year. But I think that I'll just cut right to the chase about what I think is the concern in Roberts Bird Sanctuary, and that is that I think that the community is You signaled a study from the 90s and all of that, but I think there are maybe other studies that are also being looked at about food web impacts particularly. I think that's the primary concern, especially during certain times of year for the, migration, nesting, and things like that. And the other thing is, I think that the community's interest, as I understand it, would be more to have a responsive program. So based on a finding, not. So I'm really happy to hear that you're doing the monitoring in there. And I think that makes a lot of sense. So if that would be, I think, what I would say, that if you monitor it and then find something, then, it also provides evidence back to the community that it is an area that might have some risk. And there's, people around that area too. So anyway, that's I think, my point of view on this, so.
Thank you. Commissioner Benny, did you want to respond to any
No,
of
I
that?
appreciate the comments, and that is something that we're exploring, is potentially looking at that sort of type of reactive approach. We are some limitations with the proximity to the airport, so if we find active vectors, we can't necessarily get helicopters up to do the treatments right away, so we're exploring potentially more ground treatments, which would not require that permission from the airport. But then also that also poses the risk of potentially having staff in the wetlands more often, which could be more intrusive on the other hand. So there's not really a perfect solution that is completely unintrusive, but also responds appropriately to the right vectors.
Thank you for that additional context, Mr. Carlson. I understand that your staff have been threatened and intimidated by members of the public while attempting to perform treatments and monitoring within the Roberts Bird Sanctuary. So when you're talking about doing more on-the-ground treatments, what sort of tracking are you doing so that we can understand how many of those treatments are unable to move forward due to conflicts with the public? And then also just to help us better understand just the sort of harassment that you're experiencing as you're trying to do this work, because I think that's an important contextual piece that my colleagues and I would need to have around adoption, like when we're considering saying to you, no, we don't want you using a helicopter, we want you on the ground, because we feel like that's going to be less impactful over time in terms of chemical treatment. So, I would just like to make sure that that's being tracked and communicated back to the park board as part of the work, the data collection work that you're doing throughout the season.
Thank you, Commissioner Musich. And that is part of the field staff's concern, is the people who monitor the site have had a couple unfortunate interactions with people on the ground. It's mainly consisted of following with a phone and kind of like getting really aggressive and trying to take pictures against people's permission. And so we have not had a situation where we're unable to fulfill us, and right now it's mainly surveillance, going in and taking a dip. So the way we do our dip procedure is you have to go at least 10 dips around the perimeter of a site. So it's not just you go in, check for mosquitoes and go out. You got to really explore the perimeter, because that's where they're most likely to be. And so sometimes it's had to come back and then wait till it's a little bit more cleared out and then come back. But that is concern of our field staff that are on the ground, is that there is some unfortunate interactions with the public that doesn't allow us to completely do what we're trying to do in there.
Thank you for that additional context. Commissioner Alper.
Thank you, Commissioner Musich. I really appreciated your presentation last year, and so thank you for coming back. It was a good refresher, good to think about how to go forward at Roberts Bird Sanctuary. I'm curious how you communicate what you're doing or pausing to the public, to be able to point them in that direction, and maybe it's on our website, or
yeah.
Just to be able to say, hey, we heard you, here's what's happening or not happening this summer.
Good question, Commissioner Alper. We post all of our treatment activity on our website. So you can go in, you can zoom into the Roberts Bird Sanctuary, and you can view the historical records. So we haven't done any sort of formal announcement that we've suspended treatments, because our hope is that this isn't a permanent thing. We're hoping to come up with an agreement to do it in the most effective way, least an intrusive way. And so we haven't put out any formal announcements, but anybody can go to our website and find out when we've treated, where we're looking at, what we're finding. So you can look at the surveillance that we've done so far this year and find out how many mosquitoes have been found when we've done those treatments, so or surveillance. So
Okay. Yeah, I think people are most interested in the future.
Yes.
Having that historical record is great for
Mhm.
data collection, but I just, it would be nice to know, to be able to tell people, oh, you're going out for data collection, I'm making these things up, monthly, weekly in the summer, that you can expect to see people at Roberts Bird Sanctuary, but it's not, and the decisions are made in these manners,
Yes.
based on this data. I just, I think it was really interesting to hear about methoprene, the growth inhibitor, and then you talked about that study from the 90s, and I just, so many things have changed since the 90s. We know so much more in terms of science, and I think that's where I see some of this concern coming from, and so it makes me kind of, I wrote down a question, can methoprene, can it impact birds that eat the mosquito larvae treated with methoprene? So, maybe the 90s study says no, but maybe there's newer data out there, or maybe there should be newer data. So those are things I'm thinking of. So I would echo Commissioner Abeni's thoughts.
And Commissioner Alper, I can speak to that a little bit. We know birds don't typically eat a lot of mosquito larvae, but frogs and other fish do, and so that was what the study was mainly to focus on, was the animals that do eat active mosquito larvae, what impact is it having on them? And so we're not the only ones doing studies, and so these materials are used worldwide, and so we're reviewing studies that are done by the EPA, studies that are done in Israel, studies that are done in other parts of the world, looking at the same type of products that we're using. So the study we did in the 90s, we cite that a lot because it was a huge undertaking, involved several different universities and organizations. We do get directions from our tab to do studies, and so if that might be one they want us to look at again. But right now we do have a lot of information from other sources as well.
You done? Okay, cool. Commissioner Schaefer.
Yeah, I'm just really excited that we're moving from an informal agreement to a formal agreement. I think that's going to really help the community understand what our policy is, and should alleviate some of these situations that maybe were alluded to. So I'm really excited about that. Is that something that the commissioners will be approving? Yes, okay, great. I really appreciate hearing that. And then my other point is, I think one of the points of frustration within the community is the inconsistencies within our system. When we look at Eloise Butler and then the other bird sanctuary, and now we have these other areas that are William Berry Woods and with the Quaking Bog. I think we're going to really rely on staff to prioritize what are these areas that we feel like are where we're able to dial it down a little bit in honor of what the community wants and the risk that the community is willing to take. So I'm looking forward to the work that'll come before us, and I'm just excited for the progress that we've heard about tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer.
Yep.
Commissioner Benny for the second time.
Thank you, Chair Musich. Just one quick comment then to the Park Board staff, that in the agreement, I think the Park Board, I think the community would like it if the Park Board would lead on also the Park Board identifying the sensitive times too, that there are particular times of concern, and it's probably not hard and fast dates, it depends on the spring and the thaw and all of that. But I think that would be important to be included in here to understand what's special about those time periods that we're trying to put a little bit of a lighter footprint down. Thank you.
Did you want to respond? Did you want to respond to that, or are you?
Oh, no, I think that was directed at the...
Okay, very good. Commissioner Menz.
I do have one question about, and maybe this is general, about the harassment. So there hasn't been physical harassment,
No.
correct?
Mhm.
And would it be more characterized as protest? Or, can you describe it a little bit? Because I'm wondering what our responsibility is to partners who are on the ground having this experience. Can you just kind of speak to it just briefly about what happens?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Menz. And I'm not the field staff, so I can't speak to it exactly. All I can say is there's been a couple situations where they felt that they were uncomfortable in the area, and so they left and came back. And I know it's largely it just involves of being followed. So I don't know if it'd be defined as, it hasn't been physical harassment. I don't know if it'd be defined as protest or verbal harassment or how it works or exactly what has been said. But I know that it's been a situation where they don't feel comfortable going in there, and so they've come back.
Do you have like incident reports and things like that that happen as a result of this?
No, I do not, but that's something that we could work on if it continues to be an issue in the future.
I think the documentation might be helpful to understand what these experiences entail. Thanks.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other lights. I wanted to thank you for taking the time to be here tonight and for taking some input from us. Personally, I'm hoping to see that we can come forward with an agreement that really clearly defines criteria around when things will be treated, when they will not be treated, what would be triggers for treatment should we be delaying treatment, say, because it's migration season, for example. So that it's very clear both to us as elected officials and also the public when we will be treating for mosquitoes, how often, and what's driving that specifically. I know we were told the data didn't bear out treatment, but you're not looking at just one set of data, you're looking at a comprehensive set of data from not only the specific treatment area, but the surrounding area to try to help balance those needs. So, the more we can do to be transparent about what we do and when and why, the better. And having that in an agreement in a way that really clearly defines that is what I'm hoping that will come of the conversations that you have with park staff as you move forward with the season this year, towards the end of this year. My understanding is that we'll be seeing potentially a draft agreement or a proposed agreement coming later this year, early first quarter 2024. Okay, I'm getting nods from the audience for those of you in our viewing public that are not in the room. And then yes, if we can also, clearly define how we'll communicate between ourselves when we feel like there's a discrepancy as well, so that we understand that we have a clear path of communication between our two organizations so that we can be effective partners.
Thank you, Commissioner Musich, and I'd like to say that my contact information is out here, and I'm very quick to respond. If any of you have questions or anything to add, I'm always willing to sit down or just join for a quick phone call.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mr. Carlson, for being here tonight. Have a lovely rest of your evening.
You too.
And best wishes with the rest of the season. I hope we can get the mosquitoes a bit more under check. I have so many bites right now. It is bonkers. I took Superintendent Bangora, who I don't see in the room at the moment, but I took him for a walk around Lake Hiawatha for our walking one-on-one, and we got eaten alive. It is the most amazing mosquito season in a while. So best wishes to you on your efforts to put those into check for us, and have a great rest of your summer.
Thank you.
Okay, and with that, we have nothing else on the agenda. Did you have anything you wanted to share, James Schaefer, or are you good? He's good. Okay, lovely. Then with that, I will declare the Operations and Environment Committee adjourned.
And I will note that the time is 6:37, and I'd like to call the Legislative and Intergovernmental Committee to order. Secretary Ringgold, will you please take the roll?
Commissioner Thompson.
Here.
Commissioner Menz.
Here.
Vice President Crudup.
Here.
Co-Chair Olson. Co-Chair Bene.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Would someone move the agenda for approval?
So moved.
All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved. Would someone move the minutes, please?
Don't move. Okay. Yep.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes from April 12th, 2023, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? The minutes are approved. We have one very exciting edge-of-your-seat presentation tonight. and I see some outstanding presenters here at the podium. We're going to hear about the recap of the 2023 state legislative session. So with that, Ms. Gokemeyer.
Thank you, President Forney and Co-Chair Abeni. Okay, I need to open this. And we just gave you some highlights, I think it was last board meeting. And so now that everything's wrapped and Frankie worked really hard on the final report, we're going to give you the whole rundown, I think. Okay, here we go. Okay. All right, 2023 legislative session highlights. We had a very productive legislative session. The state legislature passed both a $71.5 billion biennial budget and 2 capital investment bills totaling $2.6 billion. The 2024 legislative session convenes on February 12th, 2024. It is a bonding year, and the DFL has set aside $828 million in cash and $880 million in geo-bonding for another capital investment bill next year. The legislature will also craft a supplemental budget bill. Operations and maintenance, there will be an $8.54 million appropriation in fiscal year 24 for Metro Regional Parks operations and maintenance. This represents a one-time increase of $6 million, and the allocation will return to $2.54 million in fiscal year 25. One-time capital infusion to modernize parks. $9 million was appropriated in fiscal year 24 for modernizing Metro Regional Parks and Trails. This is a one-time general fund appropriation with a $6 million Met Council match. It will be allocated by the Met Council based on their formula, and we anticipate receiving approximately $3 million. Local government aid. The MPRB is slated to receive $8.79 million in local government aid in fiscal year 23 and $9.6 million in the next year. This is an increase of $810,000. Outside of property taxes, this is the single largest source of revenue to the park system. And this is an ongoing increase. Lottery in lieu funding. The legislature increased lottery in lieu by $1.5 million annually on an ongoing basis for Metro Regional Parks, which will result in $8.95 million per year. It will be allocated based on the Met Council formula. The Metro Parks Coalition, along with support from DNR and additional outdoor recreation groups, proposed to increase the portion of payment in lieu of sales tax from the sale of lottery tickets. The legislature increased the dedication from 72.43% to 81.56%. The money will be deposited into the account, which will then be allocated by the legislature. Park legacy funding. This bill maintains the 40-40-20 legacy split between Metro, DNR, and Greater Minnesota Parks. It appropriates $28.5 million in fiscal year 24 and $25.5 million in fiscal year 25 for Metro Parks. The MPRB share will be $6.13 million in fiscal year 24 and $5.48 million in fiscal year 25. Legacy bill, the Outdoor Heritage Fund, Lessard Sam's legacy funding, which included a $755,000 appropriation for Lake Nokomis shoreline enhancements for turtles and pollinators phase 2 from the Lessard Sam's Outdoor Heritage Fund. Met Council bonding. Metro Parks received $16.62 million for the regional park system with a 3-2 Met Council match. The Met Council will put up about $11.08 million. The following MPRB projects were included in that request. Loose Line Regional Trail land acquisition and trail implementation for $1.782 million. Shingle Creek Regional Trail master plan implementation for $3.093 million. And Victory Worth Memorial Parkway Regional Trail Recreation, Trail, and Environmental Improvements, $825,000. Bonding results, MPRB bonding, the Park Board's request for 2023 totaled $74.3 million. We were requesting funds for North Commons Regional Vision for $12 million, Grand Rounds Missing Link, Phase 1 for $12.3 million, of which we were awarded $5.5 million in the bills passed this year. Waterworks Phase 2, $5 million. Green Infrastructure and Habitat Restoration in Minneapolis Creeks, $12 million.
Minneapolis Green Parkways as a path to climate resilience, $13 million, and the new Cedar Riverside Recreation Center for $20 million, of which we were awarded $3.5 million in the bills passed this year. Other funding, there is $4 million included for skate park grants. A constitutional amendment to renew the ENRTF. Legislation was passed to reauthorize the Minnesota Constitutional Amendment dedicating state lottery proceeds to fund the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund. It specifies that not less than 40% of the net proceeds from any state-operated lottery must be credited to the fund until the year 2050. If passed by the voters, the constitutional amendment would go into effect in 2025. LCCMR funding. For 2023, MPRB had 3 projects selected for funding from the Legislative Citizen Commission on Minnesota Resources, which included Above the Falls Regional Park Acquisition and Restoration for $1.376 million, BioBlitzes Engaging Community in Scientific Efforts for $198,000, and Connecting the Mississippi Flyway to Urban Open Space for $190,000. The requests that the Park Board has for 2024 are Shingle Creek Aquatic and Shoreline Habitat Enhancements for $1.1 million and Engaging Diverse Communities in Outdoor Experiences for $200,000. Emerald Ash Borer Aquatic Invasive Species and Urban Forestry funding. The Omnibus Environment Bill included $1 million in fiscal year 24 for Metro Regional Parks hazard tree removal and replacement due to emerald ash borer. This is a one-time appropriation. Also funded in the Omnibus Environment Bill is $15.996 million for the DNR Relief Grant Program to address emerald ash borer. And the bill also included language to implement a watercraft safety program aimed at educating watercraft operators on how to identify and prevent the spread of aquatic invasive species. Teen Teamworks and DEED grant funding. The Omnibus Jobs Bill included a $750,000 direct appropriation to the MPRB for Teen Teamworks in both fiscal year 2024 and 25. The funds must be spent by June 30th, 2027. Previously, the MPRB received $175,000. Full service community school funding. The Omnibus K-12 education bill contains $15 million for full service community school grants. Districts and charter schools may be awarded up to $100,000 for planning and $200,000 for implementation annually for up to 3 years. Other items of interest passed this legislative session. Adult use recreational cannabis. The bill includes limits on locations of consumption and prohibits people from smoking or vaping in any public place, including in any indoor or outdoor area used by or open to the general public. The bill limits personal use of cannabis to individuals 21 years of age or older at a private residence or on private property not generally accessible by the public. The Earned Safe and Sick Leave Law was passed in the Jobs and Labor Bill. It enacted statewide earned paid sick and safe leave requirements, which does not preempt other local paid sick and safe time laws. And the Family Medical Leave Act was passed, which establishes a state-run insurance program to provide Minnesota workers with up to 20 weeks of paid time off annually. That's all.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Let's see, I see a light coming on. Commissioner Musich.
Thank you, Chair Benny. I'm not on this committee, so I appreciate being given an opportunity to speak. Thank you for that comprehensive overview of all of the monies you were able to secure for us this year. It's awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You've enabled us to address a ton of things that people have been hoping, dreaming, and striving to implement for decades this session. So thank you for helping make that happen. We really look forward to spending those monies on implementing all of the programming and capital projects that we now can achieve with those dollars. It's hard to comprehend just the scope and scale of what we're going to be able to do with the outcome of this particular legislative session. It's awesome. So thank you for all that hard work. Can't wait to see what you bring us next year. We do have quite a long list of things that we didn't get that we're hoping people will find space in their priorities list to fund in future years. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you so much, Chair Benny. I just also wanted to echo what Commissioner Misich said and say thank you. I just want to highlight one just for District 2, because I know when I saw the number, I was like, oh, it's Shingle Creek. It's long been, the long forgotten shoreline of Shingle Creek. It's not, but I want to highlight that because I know you guys work so hard, and I appreciate that, and I am so appreciative of all these different measures, so thank you.
President Forney.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I haven't been watching to see how many gray or white hairs has been accumulating in this session, but it was a heavy lift, but amazing results, and just really proud of first of all of you, but also to our partners in the legislature. I mean, this has just been an amazing productive, session. So it's been fun. I was going to save it for P's and C's, but Superintendent Bangora and myself were invited to go to the signing by Governor Walz of the capital bill. Anyway, and it was on park board land. Although I have to say, nobody acknowledged it was on park board land. Anyway, they wanted to have the backdrop of the Hennepin Avenue Bridge, whatever, which is, of course, in the capital bonding bill. Anyway, but it is an incredible session. I've been to a couple of, recaps. I was at, Friends of the Mississippi last night, and everybody's just banging the drum about, everything that's happened. So just a couple of items that I'm interested in. Do we feel a need with this change up about cannabis, that we should be doing something for our lands? Do we need to be putting for a rule, something to that effect? I guess I would like some advice on that, and whether we should move something forward with standards and conduct.
Madam Chair, President Forney, yes, we've staffed, Secretary, Deputy Superintendent Ringgold, and we've had a conversation already. Our office is preparing a legal memo on the issues that are presented by that. I mean, the short answer is there's going to be a lot of issues relating to employment, because there's now a new legal drug of, cannabis testing. There'll be a new regimen of rules. That already applies right now for alcohol and other drugs, but there'll be some work to be done on that. I think Ms. Johnson summarized it well. The legislature has authorized the legal use of cannabis and cannabis products by individuals over the age of 21 on private property, places not accessible to the public, which means it's not legal in our parks, it's not legal in public buildings, and it's not legal in other areas. I think the chief has been here where we've been having discussion with your staff, and I think the board will get a report on that sometime. The law doesn't take effect till August 1st. Well, the use does, but yet the short answer is you'll get a report on it. We're not ready to give you any direction tonight.
Thank you.
We're working with the staff.
And then just also in forewarning, all commissioners and everything, that is something that we have council
I mean, just to
addressing.
be clear, the legislature, use of cannabis products will be legal for people over the age of 21 in their private residence. It won't be legal in public land.
Thank you. And like I say, we need clarity, and we will be getting that hopefully soon. The other one was the transportation tax, whether or not any of that might be possible for parkways.
No. Madam Chair Benny, Commissioner President Forney, the answer to that is no, but Senator Dibble did contact me, and he is interested in helping us next year on our parkway situation.
Thank you. Appreciate you vetting some of those things.
Commissioner Menz.
Thank you, Commissioner Benny, Chair Benny. I have a question about the missing link. So I saw phase 1 put in there, and maybe this is a question for planning, but I've been trying to scan through and figure out if that limits us to a certain place around the missing link funding. Because I hadn't seen that before.
Frank, you've got this here, isn't it, the language?
I have the language.
Yeah.
It's
Exhibit 3.
So I know
Okay,
we
go ahead.
have a preferred route that was chosen that Carrie Christensen testified on in.
Can you speak, Pamela?
Here,
You
go
can
ahead.
speak into the microphone.
When Carrie Christensen testified before the Senate Capital Investment Committee, she did explain, I mean, there is a multifaceted project with lots of partners, but I think there were 3 routes and we have 1 preferred route right now. And I don't know if Director Arvidsson wants to add anything to that.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's any language around how the funding came through.
I can
Around
give you that.
preferred
If you
route.
look at your report that we sent to you as part of this document, it would be Exhibit 8, page 16. Grand Round Missing Link, Subdivision 11. This is a grant to the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. Grand Round Missing Links, $5.5 million. What the legislature said is simply this: for a grant to the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board to design and construct trail connections for the Grand Round Missing Link on the east side of Minneapolis between East River Road and St. Anthony Parkway. So it's anywhere within that area.
Okay.
And
That's what I
it's
thought.
up to the board.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Musich.
Thank you for allowing me to speak a second time since I'm not on this committee. I appreciate being given the opportunity. Council Rice, you noted earlier that consumption of marijuana is only allowed within private homes. And I'd like to ask that you research whether or not that's smoking or all consumption types.
It's consumption, which could be smoking, vaping, ingesting, cannabis products, gummies, drinking it, whatever.
So every...
And there's an additional one in a licensed place. If a city decides to license a cannabis garden or a cannabis place that might be a business, like right now you have these distilleries and things like that, if a local unit of government, they're allowed to license, I don't know, a cannabis, instead of a beer garden, a cannabis garden, you could do it there as well.
So all the restaurants in Minneapolis that are currently serving THC beverages on their menus are in violation of this law?
I'd have to look into that.
Okay, because I
mean, if
think
they-
I've
if
seen
it's
it
been
on
licensed,
every single
you have anything on that?
I
menu
believe not
I've seen lately.
at this point, because the law passed in 2022 that legalized THC edibles and beverages. Right now, there's no licensure or regulation around that really at all.
Okay, and that did or did not change with the new law?
It did change with the new law.
Yeah, that's right, what Frankie said. The THC beverages was done in a prior session, and so that's why you've seen them at breweries and restaurants.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that additional clarification.
Thank you. I don't see other lights. I just want to make a couple.
Just a couple quick comments.
I have one comment.
Oh, go, yes, Council Rice.
This really was historic, I think, and, we say that in our report, kind of at a suggestion of one of the commissioners, we included as Exhibit 10, the last page of our report. 19 is a summary that goes back to 1984 about outcomes for the legislature. And if you just wanted to use a monetary quantification of it, this was the best year ever. A couple reasons for that. There was a big bonding bill, 2 bonding bills actually, a cash bill and a capital investment bill. And we did as well as I think we've ever done because of 2 factors. We had multiple projects. The board came up with 6 projects that you approved and went through MMB and listed on it. Actually, our top priority did not get funded. North Commons was and has been our top priority for a while, but two other projects were the missing link, which has been on the agenda for a while, and then the new Cedar Riverside Center. I think it's important that the board did both of those. I know at the beginning, as we started to develop the legislative agenda, there was some talk of taking the missing link off the agenda, which would have been a colossal mistake in my judgment, and it stayed on the agenda, and we had legislative support for that. And then the last one was new Cedar Riverside Center started to come forward. I'll digress a bit. When I was much younger, I played football. I was the quarterback on the De La Salle football team, and we ran the wishbone offense. And with the wishbone offense, you don't know what the play is until well after the ball is snapped, because you either, as a quarterback, you either hand it to the fullback as your first read. The second read is you either keep it and turn, or the third read is you pitch it. And the fourth read is, if all of those fail, it's chaos. Well, our first read didn't work out, but our third and sixth reads did with, the missing link and then Cedar Riverside. And what's even probably more important is this is the most amount of money we've gotten for Metro Regional Parks. There's going to be a total of over $26 million from the state in the form of bonding, as well as the $9 million that the governor put in one-time money, and the Met Council is going to match that $26 million with another 15+ million, so it's well over 40. And that's where, Commissioner Thompson, when you mentioned Shingle Creek getting done, that's because we built a strong alliance with all the other Metro Park agencies. Pamela's there every Monday morning. Frankie was too, with the other agencies, and Senator Pappas really played a big role in that. So did Representative Lee. We had the Pappas-Pratt pizza party. We had President Forney came over during the session. That we did it on the House side too, and so we more than doubled those Metropolitan Park dollars. And there was success all throughout this too, as well as a number of other programs that the board supported for years. So I think there's some big lessons in this for the institution, and that's to stay with the program you have. Teen Teamworks has funding is quadruple. That might be one of our best outcomes in terms of the city in this summer. Superintendent Bangor came over several times, talked to Representative Hassan and Senator Fatah. Chris Meyer is a former commissioner who worked for Senator Fatah, really understood that program and helped push it in the for Senator Fatah, and really the good we could do there. That literally quadrupled the funding for that program. Now you, the board, have a big obligation to try to make sure that those funds actually turn in and work. I think Commissioner Musich mentioned that. We have a great opportunity here, and we have some great projects to do, but if the board and the institution fails to deliver on that, that won't be good. You really need to take these projects that really span the city and span the depth and breadth of the operation to really convert those. We could go on about a lot of other things. The staff did great work too with we've been waiting for a number of years with LCCMR. Mr. Arvidsson and his staff keep coming up with great grant proposals. Those got funded last year. Some of those things got delayed. We have had great support from every one of our legislators. I'd say particularly Senator Dietzick, who's carried a lot of our initiatives over the years, was great, but really everyone. Representative Lee, we just had a lot of help throughout the delegation, and there definitely is more to do, but a lot has been brought forward from this legislature, and I think it's, you as commissioners, the increase in O&M, the increase in lottery proceeds. There are ample dollars for capital resources here. There's also ample funding, if the board chooses to do it in its budget process, to take those state dollars and turn it into operational dollars. And there's LGA money too. So I'm not sure that, I'm talking probably a long time and I'm getting some looks, but we haven't had a session like this for a long time.
That's 1973?
I wasn't quite back that far, but the Met Council bonding, the biggest Met Council bonding year happened in 1977, I think, when it was set up and the legislature put aside, I mean, then it was 50 million, and that's when 50 million was 50 million, but that really did push the system forward, and that lasted for a while. But yeah, and there still is more to do. A lot of our partners in the Met, you know, St. Paul did well. A lot of these the suburban counties, there are just a lot of really good things. Commissioner President Forney was there and at the press conference, and a reporter asked, you know, well, $2.6 billion, tell us about what's big. Well, there wasn't one big project. And there, in a bonding bill, there isn't like, oh, the Metrodome or the US Bank Stadium. Instead of one $2.6 billion project, it's more like 1,000 points of light. There were 1,000 $2.5 million projects. And that's what something like this means for the whole state, that it really gets spread throughout everywhere. And so you'll see a lot of projects that people have been working on for years, like the skate park thing that Frankie said. That's been in the work for years and years to try to make something happen. And the park board can apply to that for that.
That's great. Well,
Yeah,
I
it was
appreciate
amended
that.
to add.
Yes,
that-
and I was gonna ask
That language
Ms.
was amended to add park and recreation boards to apply for the skate park grants.
Nice. That's excellent. Well, I actually just wanted to make just a couple of comments or question. One question is, since I'll still be co-chair of this committee, you know, till the end of the year. When can we take up the legislative agenda again? When do we typically take it up again? In November?
Co-Chair Benny and President Forney and Commissioners, we usually take that up in December, but I don't know if there's a steadfast
You're
rule
the chair,
about when to do
whenever
it.
you want to do it.
I mean, what I would ask, if maybe the three of you plus Mr. Workman, you know, Council Rice alluded to it, you know, what you learned is stick with what you have. But if you could just sort of just do kind of a lessons learned, it doesn't need to report back, but just so while it's still fresh in your mind. Because I think that what we had there was something that was effective, and I know there was bounty at the state as well, but I know that there was something effective about our agenda too. I'm hoping that we did something that was also workable. So, you know, just some lessons learned among the four of you so that we can maybe convene late in November or mid-November.
You know, we might want to do it earlier. Again, Senator Dibble reached out to me and said that, you know, he wants to help on parks. And this was one thing I think we need to understand. The legislature had a very robust agenda. Their job this year was so that come July 1st, which is only a little over, less than 4 weeks hence, there was a budget in place to operate the state for the next 2 years. All the other things in the state. It's not the park board, it's not the city of Minneapolis, it's none of the other stuff, just to operate the core functions of state government. They could have left all this other stuff for later. They didn't need to do a bonding bill because that's something else. Next year, they'll usually focus on the bonding bill, as Frankie pointed out, Ms. Johnson, but there are other things that they can do. And, you know, this board is working on its budget, it's working on stormwater, it's working on parkways. I think certainly as you work on those in your budget, if we have ideas, there's no reason you can't pick up the phone now and call Senator Dibble or Representative Hornstein, or we'll be talking to other legislators. The Superintendent Bangora has a call tomorrow with the legislators from North Minneapolis to talk about, you know, issues that they want to talk about, and we should keep engaging our legislative delegation.
I think, I love that. And I think that, you know, I think that there's, I think we should put some good effort into our legislative agenda for next year. So maybe in September, October, especially once we're through, the budget here a little bit, and then we'll know where we are.
Yeah, Co-Chair Benny, President Forney, and Commissioners, we could do that earlier, and we could put together a draft for you guys to think about, and then we won't do the final adoption, as you know, until after the breakfast, but we could certainly tee up a draft, you know, earlier. I don't see a problem doing that.
Let it iterate a little bit. That would be fantastic. So thank you.
You know, Mr. Arvidsson, maybe you might want to come up, did say that bonding requests, and again, it's already started for next year. Bonding requests are due July 1st, Adam. You know, and there's a list that you've already approved to put in. Next Friday. So the board's already approved a list, and we'll submit again and go back to work on things.
Okay, all right, thank you. I see President Forney has her light on.
Yes, thank you for a second time, Co-Chair. Benny, actually, the Executive Director of the Minneapolis Parks Foundation has encouraged us to have our legislative breakfast earlier so that really we can get, the legislative, our metro legislators, on board. And, hearing what, Co-Chair Benny is saying and everything, I think it's something we should really consider. Let's ramp it up as early as we can and get them on board. They did great work. Let's hope that we can fuel them with a good breakfast.
I mean, that's a suggestion worth considering, sure. I mean, I think it's, again, it kind of depends what the board's priorities are, and do we continue what's on the agenda now. It will be a bonding session primarily, so things like LGA, which is always a top priority, is something that I don't think we deal with. The Teamworks program's funded on a 2-year, actually, the funds could be used over a 4-year period. The legacy funding's been done for a 2-year period. I'm just looking at your priorities from last year. The O&M matters have been set. There might be a supplemental budget on that. Frankie noted that Director Arvidsson's staff has already submitted 2 projects for LCCMR. I mean, actually, next year really is going to be a bonding bill. So we can talk about it, but I think you had 74 million in request, and I mean, it sounds good. We got 9, so we still have a whole bunch more to deal with on that. And there is a possibility that you like to add things, and maybe, like I said, I'll go back to the football analogy. If the play breaks down and you need to do something else, we can try it, but hopefully you try to stick with the plays first.
Sure.
And try to execute those before you go on to something different.
Sure, yep.
So actually, it is bonding. So as far as an earlier thing, yeah, I mean, I think about it. On the other hand, I don't think that we did too badly with the program we had. So, I mean, I guess we could go earlier if they want to talk to them about it too. And they've got lives to lead as well, legislators. And they don't go until February, so.
Sure, yeah, and I'm thinking that's a possibility, but I guess I was thinking of, taking in our lessons learned, because the agenda also, I think, is, some of the things don't really they're not actionable in the same way as a bonding request and things like that, but it's sort of saying who we are as an organization, and maybe some of it is kind of not landing very well, or it could be better, or there's an opportunity to tweak something because we think something might be coming up in an area of interest. I don't know.
Some years when we had a cruise ship on the river, we got the delegation up, but that hasn't happened as much. I mean, that was
But I'm saying that we would work internally with the
Yeah.
committee, and whether or not we can move the
But
breakfast.
one thing for the committee and the board to understand, that one of the key trigger points is what happens in a November forecast. I mean, the economy is doing well, and that's going to say, if there's a whole bunch of money, they might do stuff. If the economy goes bad and the forecast says, a lot of the things we're talking about here could start to disappear too. Yeah.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Just one quick question. You had mentioned that it's going to be really important for us to demonstrate responsibility in spending and making significant progress on the funds that we've already been given. What do you see as kind of, is there any advice or, kind of progress that you think needs to happen to prove that we're ready to ask for more? Or to kind of, help us make that request in a way that shows we've taken seriously what happened this session.
Madam Chair, I think going on the bonding things, there's a big down payment on the missing link. It won't complete it, but I think, and we do have plans on that, but I think you're probably going to see more plans and okay, where do we go? We've got the money. What's our next move there? The new Cedar Riverside Center Representative Knorr and Senator Dietzick were great on working on that. That was kind of a walk-on in the sense it was the last one added, but both of them pushed very hard for that. Again, that's not enough to build that facility. It could be as much as $40 million. Representative Knorr had gotten language in a bill last year that could potentially get us a federal earmark on that. I think that's going to take some staff time to make that happen, but that's going to take a lot of work. I mean, that's a could be a $40 million project. And so we're just starting on that. There are the other ones that were approved. They're in the list: Shingle Creek, Victory Memorial, Loose Line Trail. Mr. Arvidsson, were you on the call? Adam? Adam was on the call. Were you on the call earlier this week on that one, the Pioneer paper? I think you were. Yeah, which kind of implicates that project. I mean, that's been on the books too. Now there's a chance maybe to get something done there. You know, we have other projects that even still in the staff stuff. Upper Harbor is finally coming to fruition, and Mr. Peterson is working on the connection to 26th. So, I mean, yeah, just the diligence in looking at that. You know, I've raised this before. We got a substantial increase in operation and maintenance funding. Historically, the board has used those dollars for capital projects or in a capital-like project. I've heard this board talk about how do you sustain what you've got. That might be something in your budget cycle that you look at and say, what's the appropriate allocation of those resources? Do you put it into capital? I mean, if you look back on the list on page Exhibit 18, or it's page 20, we used to just be starved for capital resources, but because that was before we had legacy. That was before you had park dedication fees. That was before there was a lot of these other programs that have sustained a capital thing. And so, yeah, when we got money from the state, which was operation and maintenance, the smart move was to dedicate those to capital. I think I'd have to defer to your staff about what is strategically the best way to do that, but we've now got a much more built-up system, and now you got to maintain it. And how do you do that? If you keep building new things and you can't maintain what you got, it's like, what are you doing?
All right, yeah. And I think that we worked on some budget things, and I think we have found maybe some places where we could do some maintenance, but.
I mean, those get to be board decisions about how you allocate the resources. You can tell us what to do, we go out and get it. I mean, ultimately, it's your choice on doing it, and you can keep repeating what you've done in the past about we're going to put it in this bucket. But then if you say, well, the grass isn't getting cut, or we're not maintaining, you have a lot of these other park and recreation departments take all of their O&M money and they put it into their operations and maintenance budget. They just hire the staff people to clean up and do the park work.
Yep. Ms. Gokemeyer?
Co-Chair Benny, President Forney, and Commissioners, I want to publicly thank our stellar lobbying team. I want to thank our Minneapolis delegation for really fighting the good fight and getting so much done this session. I also want to thank Adam Arvidsson and Carrie Christensen and Dan Elias for being so available, resourceful, and testifying for our bonding projects, and Adam also for working really hard on our LCCMAR, Losard Sams, and also thank Mary Lynn Pulsher for testifying and putting together materials to sell what a robust and great program our Teen Teamworks is that deserve that funding. So,
awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, great job, everybody. Well, I don't see any more questions, so with that, I'll adjourn the Legislative and Intergovernmental Committee.
And at 7:16, I will call the Recreation Committee to order. Can we have a roll call?
Commissioner Thompson.
Here.
Commissioner Olson. Commissioner Elper.
Present.
Vice Chair Crudup.
Here.
And Chair Menz.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Can I accept a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
May I move to suspend the rules?
We have a motion to suspend the rules.
It's for the purposes of amending the agenda.
There was some stuff that came in late, so I think that there was a motion to put an amendment. I think you have it in front of you. So there's a motion to suspend the rules. Do we need a roll call vote on that?
Do we have discussion on a?
I think a motion to suspend the rules is just a motion
Of
to
information.
Mm-hmm.
Under our rules, you must have 2/3 of the committee or the committee of the whole, whatever it is that you're in, supportive of suspending the rules in order to suspend the rules. Suspending the rules is a non-debatable motion. You take a vote. If it passes, the rules are suspended. You may then make motions or discuss or whatever you're going to do under the suspended rules. Typically, the motion maker requesting to suspend the rules would provide the reason that they would like to suspend the rules so people understand what's at stake.
Thank you.
The purpose is simply to add a staff guided resolution offering clarity on the other discussion items.
Thank you. Do we need a roll call vote on that, Secretary Ringgold?
I would prefer it.
Yep.
Yep.
Motion to suspend the rules. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Elper.
No.
Just want to make sure I've got the right list here. Commissioner Olson, absent. Vice Chair Crudup
Yes.
and Chair Menz.
Yes.
You have 4 ayes. And
3
1
ayes.
absent.
3 ayes.
Yes.
1 nay.
I'm sorry.
But it's
Council Rice, does that mean that, okay, it's out of the people who are here.
My
Thank you.
apology. Yep.
Okay, so we have a motion to suspend the rules. Go ahead, Commissioner Thompson.
I would move then to amend the agenda to add, I'm going to hope that all of my colleagues have this resolution in front of them that specifies parks with which to have temporary, semi-permanent fencing. Would you like me to read the whole thing?
Please do,
Amended?
yes.
A resolution directing staff to implement semi-permanent fencing and other improvements supporting high school girls fast-pitch softball at Armitage Park, Bottineau Park, and Linden Hills Park, and other parks where semi-permanent fencing is determined to be practicable, with implementation occurring as directly as practicable, but not later than the start of the 2024 high school girls softball season.
Discussion?
This was something that was brought forward to clarify some of the things I had been requesting, because these were parks identified that could be more easily brought in toward my request on the other resolution. That's all I have to say on it.
Commissioner Musich?
I have a clarifying question. May I ask it?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm not on this committee, so I appreciate being given an opportunity to speak. Is the intention of the motion maker to replace the resolution that was included in our packet with the resolution that was just read?
That is an excellent question.
Point of information or clarification. I can clarify too. So go ahead, Thompson.
You're able to speak.
From what I understand, this resolution is an amendment to the current resolution on the agenda that will help facilitate the discussion of which resolution we will move forward with. So it doesn't appear to be a true amendment, but part of the discussion.
Chair Menz, may I add?
Yep.
From my understanding, it would, in theory, replace that, so long as a separate and secondary thing in planning could also be brought forward for the purposes of my larger resolution as it was written. So that, yes.
So to clarify, it's going to replace the resolution that is on the agenda and would become the sole resolution on the agenda in place of what is currently publicly available on the agenda.
Okay. Then I would like to speak to the amended item.
Yes.
Thank you. As I mentioned, I'm not on this committee, so I appreciate being given an opportunity to speak. And I will be addressing both resolutions because I'm reusing something I had crafted to speak to the original resolution that I had to revise very quickly because I did not have these resolutions until moments before we started our meeting. So I will likely go over my 3 minutes, and I hope that the chair will allow me to do so. I once again am in the uncomfortable position of having to challenge a hastily crafted resolution that was not vetted nor discussed at length with staff to ensure an effort was made to understand the impacts of what the resolution proposes or what trade-offs will need to be considered. I implore my colleagues to treat our staff as the professionals that they are and to provide them with at least a few weeks to research and understand what business you want to bring before a committee before it is added to an agenda. When I called on Monday to try to get some questions answered, I was told by staff, I'm sorry, but we did not see the language of this resolution until it was published on Friday. That's terrible. We shouldn't be doing that to the people that we are trying to work with. I have no doubt that my position this evening will be an unpopular one amongst female softball players. However, I was not elected to represent only women who play softball and their allies. I was elected to represent all 70,800 residents of the 5th Park District. Amongst them are users wanting to see investments made in our trails, our soccer fields, our tennis courts, our skate parks, our natural areas, all just a few of the many competing investment priorities that have been mentioned during open time during our term together. As one of the elder commissioners by virtue of service, I feel obligated to provide some historical context for my colleagues. In the past, the Park Board's actions, more often than not, pandered to the special interest groups most able to mobilize speakers to show up at board meetings, the most politically connected constituencies, and the personal pet projects of the commissioners themselves. As a commissioner, I have worked diligently to create and support the adoption of processes and protocols that strive to balance the diverse park needs of my constituents, thus allowing for greater access to helping shape the future of our city's parks and the activities that take place within them from the broadest representation of park users and residents as possible. The dearth of fast-pitch fields is not a new issue, as was acknowledged by members of the board when we were debating and considering the Recreation Committee resolutions 2022-250, directing staff to create technical advisory committees for sports, and 2022-341, the proposal for the creation and management of those committees. Chair, may I continue?
Yes, how much time do you think you'll need, Commissioner Musich?
Probably another minute.
Thank you.
Thank you. Creation and management of those committees. The resolutions put forward this evening undermine the work called for and currently underway. The next Diamond Sports TAC meeting is tomorrow night. The resolutions adopted in 2022 have reallocated staff from other projects and priorities in their divisions to advance a comprehensive way of identification of needs, strategies to address those needs, strategies for improving cooperation between partners, and opportunities for improving service delivery. That is no small feat. And I'd like to apologize to each and every member of our staff and the TAC that have dedicated their time and their energy to developing an effective committee structure for making progress on improving Diamond Sports experiences within the system that may feel their work is not valued or worthwhile after reading this resolution that undercuts the work that they're doing by dictating a path forward being championed from the dais instead of one that is acknowledging and incorporating your work. I'm sorry. This resolution and the amended resolutions that replace it, which I only saw moments prior to this meeting beginning, undermine the process we would otherwise follow for community engagement that we do around prioritization of park capital improvements investments, specifically taking from the Todd Park neighbors the opportunity to consider all of the competing investments needs of their park by instead dictating to them what will be invested in their park. I ask my colleagues to short circuit that process by not passing the amended resolutions before them. The other amended resolution also calls for new expenditures that were not accounted for in our 2023 budget and will require the reallocation of currently funded priorities to achieve and are being considered in a vacuum without consideration of other priorities requiring funding, as we would do, for example, during our budgeting process, effectively bypassing it. That's not good governance. I would be remiss if I did not also make note of the irony of yet another resolution coming forward that impacts specific district commissioners without those commissioners being given the courtesy of a heads up that a resolution was being crafted that would directly impact a park in their district. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Commissioner Thompson, or was Alper first? Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to apologize to Commissioner Musich and anyone else who had a misunderstanding of the timeline. I actually wrote this on the 18th of May and sent it to both Recreation and Planning and asked which space it would be better suited for, because I recognize that it was on both locations. I requested guidance, and I amended my resolution on the 22nd, I believe it was, hoping that I could maybe get it on the planning committee and on our previous meeting 2 weeks ago on the 24th. I am sincerely apologetic if people did not know about this until it was published on Friday. I have been trying to work to get this done in a timely fashion so that we could absolutely have this discussion. So for anyone who felt blindsided of this, that was not my intention. I actually had spoken with staff just last night surrounding these two things that were added, which I was not aware they wanted added tonight, but under guidance of the idea and for the discussion, as most of you know, I walked in about 5 minutes to 5 o'clock, not quite, that I didn't realize that these were going to be placed now before us. So given that I have not had a chance to speak with anyone until the start of this meeting around that, I just want to be abundantly clear that the timeline that Commissioner Musich was understanding it to be was not in any way the timeline from my perspective. And I did not realize these weren't communicated. Certainly, because the amendment as written is meant to be system-wide, so the specific parks were things that I know that our staff was looking to try to make this happen in a timely manner for the kids even as soon as potentially this summer. So I just want to clarify around that and extend my deepest apologies to anyone who was maybe felt like they were being thrown under the bus or something was thrown in front of them I would concur that that is not the best governance. I concur. I also will acknowledge that I pushed for this to be today rather than the 21st, precisely because of the fact that I heard many times in the spring about how the park board and every entity, people who don't understand, I am very proud to sit on this board, and I'm incredibly honored to be with my colleagues. And I wanted a chance for the young people of our city to see that we hear them and we move. And I know that school gets out. My seniors, it was their last day today. And school would be out by the 21st, so I wanted to try to have this conversation with the urgency of showing the young people of our city that we cared. So thank you.
Commissioner Alper.
Thank you. Yeah, so I have not one, not two, but three versions of these resolutions that are being referenced here as they've been worked on since May 18th. And quite frankly, I've got a babysitter at home with my two girls, ages 6 and 9, and I think we owe it to the public, we owe it to ourselves to bring forth resolutions that are fully baked. And I'm disappointed in this, frankly, because I've been looking in comparison with the resolution that you suggested for the planning committee agenda and the resolution that was on our agenda for tonight to look at compare the two, and then suddenly I've got a third. So I'm definitely not prepared to support this new one, which I literally have not read, okay? Full disclosure to you in the audience who've been waiting here until 7:30 thus far. Your time is valuable, as is ours. I have not read it. I have not read it. I would prefer that we not talk about that one tonight, quite frankly. There's no doubt that we are deficient in softball and deficient in girls' sports in this area. We're a board full of women. I think we should be leveling the playing field in all areas. But I've got serious questions about the original resolution on our agenda. And so I was planning to vote in support of the original resolution so that we could pass it out of committee so that we could get some of these questions answered. But truly, it is not respectful of our time to bring forward so many that are not, that have sentences that are hanging out, that don't, so anyway, I can't support the amended
agenda, but it'll probably pass. So then I won't support the resolution, which I'm getting confused between the amendment and the resolution. So I just, I spoke with many of you, or I spoke with one person on the phone. I've received many of your emails. I think I want to do more, and I feel your urgency and your passion, Commissioner Thompson. There are many people who are not here tonight. There was somebody who spoke last time about the field at Powderhorn, and how are we gonna write a resolution for that too? I mean, maybe that's the way forward. Is that the way forward? So I'm willing to consider.
Thank you, Commissioner Halper. Go ahead.
I feel like I deserve the time too. Like, I'm willing to support this one, 119, out of committee, and I want to talk more about it, but I can't have three.
I will happily withdraw my action to amend the agenda if that can just get us into discussion.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. And I'd like to provide some clarity on this, because Commissioner Thompson did submit the original resolution to staff and asked for direction. When staff was not able to put it on the planning committee agenda, we had come up with a decision that maybe it should go on the recreation agenda, because although we are accountable, we are directors in this entity. We are elected by the public. And the public engagement around this happens more often if the high schools are in session, that the girls deserve a voice, that the constituents deserve a voice during that time. I talked to Superintendent Bangora. He asked me to delay it to the 21st. I was in agreement. I talked to Commissioner Thompson. We decided to put it on this agenda because of the timeliness of the issue. The other resolutions that came forward were based on a meeting that happened yesterday that wasn't necessarily, I didn't know that they were going to necessarily come forward. So we were all sort of thrown by a loop on that. I would like to accept Commissioner Thompson's withdrawal of the amended resolution so that we can approve the agenda and discuss the original resolution. Now, I'm not sure where I am in that process, but if Commissioner Thompson has withdrawn her request, the rules would no longer be suspended. Is that correct, Secretary Ringgold?
I believe so. Is that correct, Council Rice?
Yes, I mean, I think right now the amended or the Thompson resolution of today could be considered, or somebody could move the resolution that was on the agenda. The board could forward either one at this, or the committee could discuss.
First, can we approve the agenda? Can I accept a motion to approve the agenda? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Can I accept
I'll move the minutes.
Thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we have one order of business on the agenda today, and that is Resolution 2023-119. Can I have a committee member please read that resolution?
I will read the resolution, 2023-119. Resolution directing staff to find in current or future master plans space for at least 4 and potentially 6 fast-pitch specific softball fields in the MPRB system, and then implement the plans to completion starting as soon as possible and culminating no later than spring season 2028. Additionally, to place no less than 6 temporary fast-pitch length fences in the interim on softball fields starting immediately and lasting until the permanent structures come online to replace them.
Discussion. Commissioner Benny.
My light's on from before. Thank you, Chairman. But I would actually like to speak I'm not on this committee, so thank you for the chance. Could somebody explain how this works with the TAC we have? And I'll say one other thing. The other resolution that was just pulled away, that one almost makes more sense to me. Something that's temporary for the 2024 season, and I want to think about, and only for the 2024 season. This one, to me, is doing what the TAC is doing, and I don't get that. So who can explain that?
Staff could explain that a little bit better. I see this as a resolution that is authorizing something that is in the acute need. The TAC is long-term planning. This will come up at the TAC, from what I understand, tomorrow, but there's no resolutions, and there was nothing on the agenda specifically for softball.
But so this is still pie in the sky. This would be pie in the sky a little bit, and I think that there's nothing that would happen any faster if this waited till that TAC wrapped up. But meanwhile, what I would do is ask this committee to maybe go back and take a look. I really like the idea of putting something into place for the 2024 season. That's what we're hearing from our players here and our families, and I'm hearing a lot about that. So the long-term vision is to make some capital investments that are the right ones in the right location. But in the meantime, I think of it like the pop-up skate park on the north side of Bedeh-Makaska. It's something we can do right now. We can just get it, we can be in a better position for 2024 and let them play without getting hurt, with being able to hit homers or whatever, and all that good stuff. But anyway, I feel like this committee might want to take both of these back and come back with something a little bit more dialed into what you're doing that's not in conflict with that TAC. Thank you.
Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you, Chairman. And I don't disagree. I will take a couple of minutes. And my intent with this was to see an overarching picture of what I've learned so far from this organization and what I know of the situation with specifically softball. On a personal note, I've been playing this game or coaching it my entire life. And I know that it's like, does it belong in planning? Does it belong in rec? Do we wait for the TAC? Do we this and this? And that is the procedure of government that is slow and arduous, and trying to figure those things out takes a long time. And with all respect to my colleagues, I think Commissioner Elper brought up a great point about, how do we nickel and dime these things. What I want to give agency for, and I will continue to push, is that we see this from that lens of the young people of our city, specifically girls, are at a disadvantage. I saw it up close and personal. My own pitcher nearly ripped her cleat off one game because of getting stuck in a spike of our transversal fields, right? These that staff had recommended were around finding things in master plans already that we can just designate as fast pitch instead of a convertible field or something to that extent. And I support that, and I think that those conversations need to happen. It was under my understanding that we would be doing that in the next 2 weeks, precisely to amend this as it went forward in 2 weeks' time to the full board. But as I had stated, forgive me, I don't remember who was on the email, but I'm happy to wait for this so long as we can start this conversation and we have a timetable of we are doing this. So often these things get lost in the next year and the what if, and I don't want us to be like Viking fans, always thinking that it's going to get better next year. We all know where that goes. But so I am happy to withdraw this, to then put two things like this coming in the next agendas. But because you are correct, there is a vagueness to it that I wanted to implore all of our staff and all of us to consider what that might look like. And I am not claiming to have all the answers within this organization. What I am saying is I see the need, and I think and hope that I made a case for what that looks like for equity for the children of our city. So I suppose maybe I won't do it, but if one of my colleagues would like to move to, table this, I'm happy to support that idea. But
Can we please discuss the
Please.
the
Yeah,
resolution
absolutely.
on the table? Vice President Crudup, is that how I say it? Did I say it wrong?
You did, but I'll forgive you.
Can you pronounce it for me again? Because I'm terrible, even if.
No way.
All right, thank you.
Cruda.
Cruda.
So, really quickly, I think that, let me turn my microphone on so that the people who are watching on YouTube can hear. I think that it's clear, right? Here we are, I think there's some irony here, but this is about the young people, right? That's what we're talking about. We're talking about girls who are feeling undervalued in a system that we are elected to govern. And I think it's really simple. What we're trying to do is provide an ounce of hope to young people while they are still in the process. Some of them will matriculate out of high school, and some of them will just go on to the next grade level. And as a former coach and a collegiate level softball player, I think that it is important, and I'm down with offering hope to our young people. They came, they were brave, they were bold tonight, their families are here. We make a great deal of sacrifice, and yes, government is slow, and everyone has an agenda, but again, I think that if we continue to put the young people first in this space, it's really simple. And the language we can fix on the back end. We don't need to complicate it. You got your kids at home with a babysitter. There are kids in the audience that are here with their parents, and probably people who have sitters at home as well. And so I think that if we can let the people that are here tonight leave what feels like a win, then we should. It's the same thing that we continue to do to people as they sit and wait for hours on hours on hours for us to pontificate over an issue that's really clear. Let's fix the fields for the young people, plain and simple, and in the words of every young person across the globe, period.
Actually, in the audience, I would ask the audience to refrain from clapping. It's not really what we do at the Park Board, but thank you for your support of our Vice President, but please refrain from clapping. Commissioner Alper.
Thank you. I'm glad we're discussing this here tonight. So I think the idea of temporary fencing is a great pathway to get at some of the larger issues. And from what I've learned a lot more about this, that this would be, I mean, it's not that temporary. I mean, it's not long term, but it lasts all season. Okay, I see you nodding. Great. I'd like to, as we think ahead to the next couple weeks, I'd like to have a better understanding of, again, how the Diamond Sports Technical Advisory Committee fits in terms of decision-making, how this dovetails with that process, because I definitely want to, we spent a lot of time on that resolution, and I want to make sure that we're taking their advice into account. Perhaps many of you are on that committee. I also am interested in getting more information on, I realize it wasn't in the other, at least I don't think it was in the other resolution, but this, where it calls out inordinate amounts of time and energy converting softball fields to the different dimensions for the different leagues, like, that could save money in staff time and maintenance requests. I'm interested in learning more about that. This resolved clause about the master plans is where I have the biggest question mark. I am wondering, because we use our master plans as our foundations for major decision making. Major, it's like the bedrock. I have learned this, right? But it leads me, I'm wondering if the deficiency in softball fields is an anomaly in our master planning. Or what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say, are the master plans insufficient when it comes to softball? Is that an anomaly? Or is it more emblematic of greater issues? Because if that's the case, that's really worrisome to me. So that's something I want to know. I want to know if it's an anomaly, both in the day-to-day world right now, or if it goes beyond and in the future in terms of our planning. So that's one thing. And then I have at least one other thing. Because we're talking about these 4 and potentially 6 permanent fast pitch specific fields, I think personally I'd like to see that cut from this, because we have locations called out. We have we have, I'm going to read to you. We have North Commons Park, Todd Park, Linden Hills Park, Armitage Park, Botno Park, Excel Field, all for softball in the master plans. So that's, again, I mean, I guess that's my biggest question. Like, are there deficiencies in our master plans that go beyond, in softball, or that go beyond softball? And if there are, that's a big deal.
Thanks, Commissioner Alper. I'm going to speak for a second here. So I don't see a huge problem with the original resolution from Commissioner Thompson, and I feel like it was worked on and that we are elected officials to push things forward that we don't see happening. And this is not this year. This has been building. And I think that resolutions like this and the action of this board strengthens what the TAC will do. Because the TAC, we've had the second meeting, third meeting, the second meeting is tomorrow. There's only been background. There are 8 people on the committee. There's a lot of work to do. And we're going to have to be engaged in that. There are deficiencies in the master plan, Commissioner Alper, because we're calling them softball fields for girls, and they're not actually softball fields for girls. They need modification in order to be that. They don't need huge modification, they need minor modification. So the resolution, and I appreciate the staff trying to come up with amendments and new resolutions that really specifically address the places where we could do this now. The Botno Park is going through a redesign. I have put in some community engagement to move the fences in. It would easily make that girls' fast pitch. Commissioner Thompson's resolution doesn't necessarily commit us to building new facilities. These are fast pitch facilities. Right now, and I'm going to go on a little bit of a diatribe here since I've allowed one, Northeast Park, I failed you all. All of you should look at me and you should say that I failed you. And I failed the community that I live in and the park that I walk around. Because in our master plans, which are the things that we are supposedly accountable to, we had 3 to 4 fields designed in Northeast Park. When it went to feasibility, someone before I was here decided that we can't fit a 300-foot fence there, or we can't fit 4 300-foot fences there, and we amended the master plan. We made it so that we built 1 300-foot facility instead of the 3 or 4 from 2014. We make up rules as we go along to fit what we want. And meanwhile, the girls sitting right over there, and all the girls, and mind you, any girls' fast pitch facility would also be good for our 12U and under baseball programs, and would not have adults kicking them off the field because they want to play beer league softball, which is technically illegal. So I take sincere offense to the fact that we're putting forward a resolution that says that we should have 4 to 6 fields for girls' fast pitch softball. How is that not something that we should all get behind? I am going to be supporting this resolution. I hope it does not get tabled. I think that it will put some teeth to the work that we are doing in the TAC, and I don't think it's going to cost a ton of money to do this. I think that we need to make a commitment and realize that we are the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. We have a commitment to our facilities. We have organizations that are partners, and we need to allow them to help us. They will put the fencing up. They will. And we can have other ways to do this. I don't understand the pushback. So much pushback. This is a public dialogue. The public is speaking. They've been telling us for a long time. We cannot be afraid to do things We can't be afraid to do what's right. And I don't want to discredit staff. I think that they are working very, very hard. But I am not concerned about staff feelings. I'm concerned about those girls and my constituents, and I'm elected to do that. I do this in the classroom too. I'm not worried about the adult feelings. It is the kids. So, Mike Tate, how are the children? Like, let's do it. So, Commissioner Alper, and then Commissioner Thompson.
Great. Well, I just would like to say, I hope, I'm not coming to table it. I would just like, I hope that we can, the author of this, can perhaps massage the resolution over the course of the next couple weeks. I personally would like to see it focus on the near term. I think it's really important to do that piece, as you said, that the Diamond Sports TAC is for more of a long-range vision. So then focus this in, take out that piece about the master plans, which again opens up a whole Pandora's box for me, and keep it focused. I mean, I really also would like to know, I think it's important to talk more about this. It brings up other feelings for me about like, oh, how are we doing in other areas? But maybe that can be addressed. I don't know. I'm rambling a little bit, but I appreciate your points. I appreciate the sentiment, and I think it's time for Year of the Girl. I don't know.
Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to speak briefly to Commissioner Alper's questions. What we seem to do with our planning is like, it's just an idea, right? We'll have the playground facility here, and we'll have a general use sports field there, and here's a softball field. And it's always multi-use. So what I was requesting is not necessarily to change any master plans, but to identify master plans where then it could be, when we get to the more specific levels of planning, say, this is a fast pitch specific field, and staff started looking toward that. That's why it was sort of overarching. And to be clear, like, I'll just use North Commons as an example. That is not an appropriate field to play fast pitch. It's turf. It's got a turf infield, and it is dangerous to play, and the dimensions are not actually. There's a lack of understanding of what this would need to be. And just for future conversation, it would be great if the kids of our city could host a tournament, and you really can only do that with 2 or more adjoining fields. So that was the purpose behind this resolution, and I absolutely would want to clarify things. I appreciate this conversation, is to say, first of all, put agency and a timeline behind this, and also to help people understand what the need would be going forward, and have us constantly have eyes on that. That's why it wasn't meant to be vague, but it was meant to empower people to identify these sites, not necessarily me. And some of them have already been identified. And again, it was not the intent to monkey with master plans per se, but refine ones that already exist that I have not gone through all of our service areas to know where the best ones are. That remains the intent, but I'm recognizing it needs clarification.
Commissioner Olson, welcome.
Hi, yeah, sorry for my tardiness. So, perhaps this was discussed, I'm kind of in a few different places on this, but would this funding preclude other things that are in the plan? Or is it speeding up this portion of something that's already in the plan? And we're kind of just moving things up ahead, or is it, we're going to miss out on something else that the community wanted and when we master planned this in the first place?
I don't think that that's the intent of the resolution, but Commissioner Thompson can speak to that.
We don't have specificity yet on the main idea and resolution. The parks that would be potentially identified, I can't speak toward that, but would not be my intention that it would necessarily cost any more or shift anything. It's just about making sure that it's fast pitch specific.
And Commissioner Olson, the intent of the TAC is not to modify any sort of master planning. It's to find those places where these things can happen.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think, I am sympathetic to this. I think, we all have our individual sports, recreation activities and parks that we know very well, I think, and we can kind of see the discrepancy of what a community needs and what is listed in a, master plan, for instance. It was one of my, it was also kind of a harsh lesson. One of the first lessons I learned here was about, Payne Park basketball. I still go there a few times a week, and I still see a full court next to an empty tennis court, right? And it's something that I was like, this is what the community needs. They're not exactly people who are going to come here and show up, but it's what folks want. I was told it's master plan. We would have to go back and do a whole nother round of, year or couple years of community input and all this stuff. And, I kind of got that, right? That's, what we do kind of to Commissioner Menz, or Vice Chair Menz's point. We have these rules, and then, we can kind of change them. And I kind of think, maybe it's okay if we change them, because I think sometimes we're on the ground and we see things differently than a plan would see, and we see different necessities. But I don't know, we also have all those rules, so I'm kind of a bit back and forth. Perhaps I would like more clarity as to, if there are other things that the committee want that would be kind of sacrificed for this. Maybe that's something that overall is a good. Clearly, there are several of my constituents here who really want this, and so that's worth considering. Just kind of putting it out there that I'm still kind of up in the air on this one, and I want more discussion, I want more info. Seeing as it is only the committee vote, I could be okay with this moving forward, so we can discuss it more and I can learn more. But yeah, I'm sympathetic, even though we do have these rules, and I was kind of given the master plan reasoning before for something, but I understand that y'all are in it, and so it. And so I think I'm going to, for now at least, put a little trust and faith in that. But yeah, I'm still kind of in the middle on this.
Secretary Ringgold.
Sorry, Secretary Ringgold, I missed you.
Thank you, Chair Menz. I do, if you'll indulge me just a minute, do want to say a few words about where staff have been on this resolution and kind of the thinking of this resolution. So I think there's one part of it where there's a question around the master plans, and is there a deficit in the master plans or something, or is this the only deficit in the master plans? Like, there's some questions brewing there, and I want to reset part of that to say it didn't take long for staff to find a complement of softball fields, future-facing and master plans to be able to address the baseline resolution, which lends me to believe that there likely isn't a deficit. It's just that the master plans are future-facing, right? They don't actually reflect everything that's currently in the park. They're reflecting what's likely to be in the park moving forward, based on a tremendous amount of community engagement, where all of those constituents didn't talk just about their one park, but talked about the parks within their entire district, which meant that you had to think about the complex needs of all of the sports, of all of the genders, of all the different ways that people want to recreate in the system. So I don't actually believe that this particular question that was raised through the resolution put forward by Commissioner Thompson showcased a deficit or an anomaly of something not being hit, but actually instead showcased, wow, it's actually in there. We just have to be able to understand how we're going to get to that within the capital program, or how we might be able to take baby steps to implementing that a little bit sooner. I will also say that the initial conversations, and primarily on the executive team, so I know that for a variety of reasons, a lot of the conversation on this resolution has not spread out very far into the organization. We did have a really big kind of an initial aha, where as an organization, we pride ourselves in thinking about inequities, right? As an organization, you have ordinances that establish exactly how you will set up your capital program around the demographics of the community, the needs of the community, as well as the condition of the athletes. You think about that as a board, we think about that as a staff a lot. Those are not actually very specific around gender, right? And so we're kind of confronted with a question of how might we think about gender inequities within that larger context, because the ordinances we currently have don't actually touch that very well. So there might be things that as a board and as staff working with the board will likely think about long term. Is there something around gender that has to come into how we think about allocation of resources? So I will tell you, whatever you decide to do tonight, you're still in committee, but staff will want to work with you to help make sure, A, you all better understand how the tools that we do have are actually seemingly working better than maybe what they are anticipating, or maybe folks are initially seeing them as working. But also recognizing there's some opportunity in here for us to think about some additional pieces that we might want to put systems in place around. So we do want to continue that conversation. So that's, I don't mean to maybe contradict or change maybe some things. I know, Chair Menz, I might have kind of contradicted you there just a little bit, but I feel like you needed some staff perspective in terms of, at least at that executive team level, how we've been talking about this.
Commissioner Musich.
Speak. I'm not on this committee, but I appreciate being given the opportunity to share my thoughts. It seems that some of my points were perhaps lost because what I had to say was perceived to be a rant rather than commentary. But I would like to clarify for my at-large colleague, Commissioner Olson, that if this board is to pass a resolution that prioritizes specific park improvements for implementation with current CIP funding, that does in fact short-circuit the community's opportunity to determine prioritization of those fund expenditures within the parks within their neighborhoods. The amended resolution specifically would force the funding dedicated for Todd Park to be spent on fast pitch improvements. And perhaps the community would have prioritized that, but we would be taking that choice away from them.
Point of information, I think that the resolution that's on the table does not specifically outline Todd Park. We took those off, those were directed by staff, and we took those off. I'm sorry, I'm getting a message.
May I say it out loud?
Yes, please.
Could park dedication fees be used for temporary fencing in the 2024 season?
I'll try to answer that. My quick answer would be not likely. Park dedication fee has to be made for a permanent improvement that benefits the property owners nearby. If there was a permanent change in the field, that's a possibility. But I think, again, that you're asking questions that it's a good question and it would take some research.
President Forney.
Thank you, Chairmans, for allowing me to speak since I'm not on this committee. First of all, I want to thank everybody who stayed on for this conversation. I hate to tell you, but this is the way sausage is made, or shall I say government is made. I think the overriding concern I have here is about process. Thank you, Deputy Superintendent, for articulating that what though has come out of this conversation, I hope the TAC will take it on tomorrow. And I feel like this conversation that we're having here today, if it concludes in a passage of the resolution, we'll be putting the cart before the horse, because I value the voices of not only you, but what we have put together, which is our Technical Advisory Committee. And so I feel that this is, I would really appreciate Commissioner Thompson really stating that let us table this, Let us listen to what the Technical Advisory Committee has to say. Let's hear what the staff has said, because they have been brought forward a perspective that maybe has been overlooked. And first of all, let's honor the Technical Advisory Committee. Second of all, let's honor, as Commissioner Alper is saying, let's honor the master plans. But if there's deficits, that is exactly what the Technical Advisory was put together. I mean, Commissioner Musich worked hard on a resolution that Commissioner Menz was trying to push through to put forward this Technical Advisory Committee. Let's let it do its thing. That is what it's there for. And I feel as if we are usurping totally those voices by bringing this forward. So it's been robust discussion, but I would really appreciate it being tabled. If it comes before the full board, I probably, if it's in this state and everything, I could not support it. So, but thank you all for coming here and hearing how government works.
Commissioner Benny?
Thank you for the chance to speak again, Chair Menz. Would we, this doesn't if we were to implement in the future an improvement and build some fast pitch fields, it doesn't have to come from NPP 20. We could have it as a bonding request. We can, right? I mean, there are other funding paths, especially if we know there's an equity issue here, even if we can't quantify it in our existing metrics. But, right? We could find other funding sources. Is that true? Right? I mean, we're not locked in. Okay, so, I mean, and then I think, I would hope that the TAC, and I really like what President Forney just said, will bring all of those issues out, saying this has to be a priority, and put pressure on this board to find a way to fund the development of these fast pitch fields. But what I would also say is I really hope the Rec Committee takes up the issue of what is 2024 going to look like. 2023 was brutal. I mean, you guys all kept records and photographs and sent emails talking about just the way the fields weren't ready, and that it just really seemed like I heard loud and clear that you could look over and see that the boys' teams weren't experiencing the same level of service. They were having a higher level of service, and I don't know if that's the schools or the parks. I can't figure all that out. But let's address 2024. There's a chance to do some things that will get us going until we can start to build these fields, which I hope we'll be able to do rapidly based on the tax recommendations. So,
is there any other discussion on this? Before we take a vote on this resolution, what I'm wondering is, the resolution doesn't have to go to the full board in 2 weeks, correct? Is that at the discretion of the president? President Forney, is that at the discretion of you? Like when the resolution comes out of committee and goes to the full board?
I suppose.
Okay. I don't think, and when Commissioner Thompson and I talked about this, and I think that this does relate to the work of the TAC directly. But it does also relate to the fact that we as electeds need to respond to issues that happen in our community that are unsafe for kids. And in some ways, I mean, it was bad. It's been bad. It's been bad not just this year, too. So what I would like to suggest is that we don't necessarily bring this resolution to the full board if it passes next time. That we wait till the end of the summer, even. Because the TAC does need to do its work. But the TAC needs some teeth. This will help direct the TAC discussion temporarily. This will allow the TAC to feel like, oh, we've got some action going at the board level. We know what's happening. We've got a resolution coming out of committee. There might be others, and this might go out of process. But processes it's not set in stone. We need to make action here. And I think that this will strengthen the work of the TAC and allow voices to be raised. I don't think that any voices are going to be usurped by this action. But we will find out tomorrow. And when those voices are raised, we will hear them. President Forney.
I once again, will really encourage, please table this so that the voices have been heard. Okay, I think that that's an important thing, and I really strongly suggest that it be tabled.
Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you. I know I'm not sure I'm allowed to speak for a third time, but I just wanted to say, in the longer form of this resolution, I specifically noted that it would be directed under guidance of the TAC. Sort of this, it's more of a waiting on their decision-making, so I was cognizant of this ongoing thing, and it is completely in every way not meant to be the cart before the horse. It's meant to follow, but I guess, yeah, as Commissioner Menz says, Chair Menz, follow with a little bit of teeth and impact. And with the Technical Advisory Committee is around all of field sports, and I just wanted to highlight this one, and I respect that people can disagree, and I appreciate Commissioner Olson talking about the difference between pickleball, tennis, and basketball, because yes, it resonate around things. The reality is we don't have a single thing like this in our system, and I appreciate already the conversations that have come up, and Deputy Superintendent Ringgold brings up a fine point that in a very short order, we are able to identify locations that this can be amended to discuss further. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Commissioner Schaefer?
I'm not on this committee. I just wanted to say two things. I'm really excited about some of the topics that have come up. Number one, this idea of safety for our youth, that's paramount. So I really agree with that point. Secondly, I also agree with the idea that has been brought up is, where is gender in our equity matrix? How is that played out, or within our master plans? So, this is awesome, this discussion. I know it's been long-winded and it hasn't been a diatribe, but I just want to say perfection is the enemy of progress, Winston Churchill. That's all.
Commissioner Olson?
Yeah, thank you. Well, maybe actually, I'll let, I think if Superintendent could go first, that might be helpful for me. Thanks.
Superintendent Bangura.
Thank you. I just want to echo too. I want to make sure that when we had our discussion yesterday, we met with Commissioner Thompson and Commissioner Menz, and we had a really good discussion. What I want to just emphasize from staff perspective, that we hear and we're very clear about the importance of and the timing of this for these young people that are sitting here today, from girls softball, from softball. I clearly understand the urgency of it, and I'm even moved more that they're here today, still sitting here today. I support this. I mean, this is incredibly important. There have been moments in park history. I sit here today since I came here in 2019, but I worked in the facilities for 19 years. And every moment there was times when people stood in front of this dais and they said, we need more pickleball courts, and we're building pickleball courts. There's these moments, right? This is a moment that's incredibly important to this organization. These young people need these spaces. Our staff, as we sat, put forward these to get some clarity and to give some real teeth and background to what is being asked by Commissioner Thompson and Commissioner Menz. This was not intended to confuse this in any way. It was to really give some pathway that we could do something that is being asked of us as an organization. So I only wanted to say that this is an important moment, and I echo what Commissioner Schaefer said, that this is how it moves forward. This debate, these discussions, and how we move forward as an organization to support what the community needs. And I look forward to moving forward and supporting these young people and getting these fields done and making sure that they have a place to play that's safe and it's equitable, and it's going to be a place for them to take pride in this organization, period. So I just wanted to just echo that and say that with whatever this board needs for the staff to do, we're going to move forward and support that and support these young people in the city of Minneapolis.
No clapping. Commissioner Olson, are your light on again?
Yeah. Okay, so this has all been very helpful. But what I have gathered is that it is not necessarily something that needs to be passed immediately, and it's been kind of brought up that could be tabled. It sounds like staff wants to work on this and that we can actually come up with a more perfect version of this. I would be most comfortable if we did table this and didn't exactly vote on this right now. So I'm still, I would still move it forward, but I am gonna move to table it.
There's no other discussion after that, is that correct? Is that what the Roberts rules?
Is there a motion to table on the?
If there's a motion to table, then that means there's no more discussion and it's, do we have to vote on the motion to table?
If it's made.
Motion to table has been made by Commissioner Thompson.
Olson.
Commissioner Olson. Damn it. No, I cussed too. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Nay.
Nay.
Do I have any more light? Another light? Are you done? Thank you. I do know that this is the work of government, and I really want to echo Commissioner Schaefer. I think that this is the work of committee. That sometimes we don't get an opportunity. Commissioners are not allowed to talk about resolutions in this format it's open meeting law. This is an open meeting. We have had a discussion about something that is challenging, something that is presented to our community, and I'm really glad that we're going to move forward and vote on this resolution. I think this is the work of the public, and I appreciate my fellow commissioners sharing their opinions, not diatribing. Sorry, Commissioner Musich, if I offended you. But all those in favor of Resolution 2023-119, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion passes. I would like to clarify with President Forney or the staff that this resolution does not need to come forward in 2 weeks, and probably should wait till the end of the summer so that the TAC can do some work around this specific resolution. With that, I will adjourn the Recreation Committee meeting way over time at 8:20.
I'm not going anywhere. Okay, I would like to call the Planning Committee to order. Secretary, could you please take the roll?
Commissioner Thompson.
Here.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
Commissioner Olson.
Here.
Co-Chair Benny.
Present.
Co-Chair Alper.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Great, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved?
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Let's do an approval of both meeting minutes, both of them at the same time. Can I get a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes of May 10th, 2023, and April 26th, 2023.
Thanks. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Both of those meeting minutes pass. All right, no public hearing. Let's move on to our resolution before us tonight. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to move Resolution 2023-111, resolution approving a design, installation, and maintenance agreement with the Native American Community Development Institute and Hennepin Theater Trust for the Bede-Makaska Refractory Mural at Bede-Makaska Park within the Minneapolis chain of lakes regional park.
Thank you. Is there anybody, well, let me first ask, remember, our attempt to, anybody have questions first? Anybody who wants a presentation, who has specific questions? Perhaps we, I don't see any lights.
I would just like to know when the installation timeline is.
Great. Come on up.
Co-Chair Alper, Commissioner Schaefer, the installation timeline is that following this agreement, there'll be an engagement process early in the summer, a design process, and then installation around September.
Great.
This year.
Great. Thanks for the update.
Yeah.
Seeing no further questions, let's go to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes. And with that, I will adjourn the planning committee in record timing.
At 8:22, I will call the Admin and Finance Committee to order. Will Secretary Ringel please take the roll?
Commissioner Musich. Commissioner Menz. Absent Vice President Crudup. Okay.
Go find him.
I think we're going to have enough to hit quorum here.
Okay.
Co-Chair Thompson.
Present.
And Co-Chair Schaefer.
Present.
You have a quorum.
May someone make a motion to approve the agenda?
To approve the agenda.
All those in favor of the agenda, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes. I would like a motion to be made for the approval of the minutes.
Move the minutes from 2020, or May 24th.
2023, thank you very much. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes. Will someone please read the resolution that we have before us as an action item this evening?
Resolution 2023-118. Mike's not on. I'll move Resolution 2023-118. It's a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding with dog grounds related to the operation of off-leash dog parks located within Loring Park and adjacent to South 4th Street in downtown Minneapolis, and approving a donation agreement with Ray H. Harris for 2 artworks located in the off-leash dog park within Loring Park.
Thank you. And I think tonight we have Director Arvidsson that give us an update on this, maybe a description of where the grounds actually are and the work that I know you have invested a lot of time into.
Co-Chair Schaefer, Commissioners, I have a very brief presentation. Shouldn't take but a couple of minutes. The resolution before you this evening is really 2 agreements in one that would facilitate essentially taking 2 new dog parks into the Minneapolis park system. One of the agreements is an MOU with Dog Grounds, which is a nonprofit that created these dog parks and has been managing them since 2007, as Councilmember Goodman described earlier today. And then the other is an agreement with Ray H. Harris, who is the owner of 2 artworks within the Loring Park Dog Park. He commissioned them upon the creation of that dog park, so he is the rightful owner. And those would be donated to us because we want to have ownership of all the facilities within that dog park when we take ownership of it. There is currently an existing lease agreement between Dog Grounds and MPRB that dates from 2007 that allows the Loring Park Dog Park to operate on our land. That lease would be terminated as a part of this agreement because we would be taking over operations. There is a current complicated lease agreement and conditional use permit for the Gateway site with MnDOT that MPRB would be taking over, and essentially the city is kind of now acting as a middleman there, and they would be out of it. We do currently manage the licensing and the dog park permits at both of these sites already, so there would be no change really to the public in how these operate at all. They would still use the same dog park permitting process. Dog Grounds, as Councilmember Goodman mentioned, they want to transition more to kind of a friends group style with more focus on advocacy and fundraising rather than focusing on actually maintaining these parks with a volunteer base. But they want the dog parks to perpetuate. They are very popular and they're important recreational space for downtown residents. The dog parks are located in these locations. This is the southern end of downtown Minneapolis. I've labeled the convention center on here as well as Loring Park on the left-hand side of your screen. The Loring Dog Park is in the northern corner of Loring Park near the Minneapolis Technical College campus. So it is wholly on parkland today. Then the other dog park exists where the 35W entrance ramps come into the city. It is not situated on the sort of triangle gateway that is a sort of MnDOT open space that has more of a passive purpose. It's actually over kind of on the left-hand side, sort of above that on-ramp. So again, that's an existing dog park. It's fenced and utilized, again, primarily by, I think, downtown residents in that part of town. A couple of key facts, as I mentioned, we'll work to transfer the conditional use permit around the Gateway Dog Park, termination of the existing lease. With regard to funding, Dog Grounds currently does have $34,000 in cash that will be dedicated to these dog parks for capital improvements or maintenance or conservation of the artworks. Decisions around how that money will be spent and any future raised money will be spent will be made through an annual meeting between Dog Grounds and the Park Board. But essentially the intent is that all the money that they do raise as a partner would go to the, would be invested back into these dog parks. We expect the dog parks together will cost an estimated roughly $22,500 to operate. And these are being included into the 2024 system equity investments that Director Weissman puts before you as the current service level each year. The two artworks will become part of the MPRB collection and will be managed as such. So we would be responsible for the ongoing conservation of them, interpretation of them. We'd include them on our maps and such like that. I do note there was a staff amendment that was submitted, which does include some additional clauses, which were, I apologize, a bit last minute, but they were designed to safeguard some MPRB interests, especially into the long-term future and some liability issues. So ideally, we would have that amendment moved. I believe it was submitted in order, and it would just help us clean up the MOU a little bit at this stage. So that's all I have. If there are questions, I will stand for them.
Commissioner Musich?
Thank you, Chair Schaefer. Director Arvidsson, do we know if these dog parks have stormwater management incorporated into their design for runoff?
Chair Schaefer, Commissioner Musich, I don't know whether they do. The Gateway Dog Park does not have anything obvious, like it doesn't have a stormwater depression or under drain or anything like that. So I'm not sure where stormwater is going, presumably toward those 35W entrance ramps. And at Loring Park, the dog park is surrounded on three sides by park. Let me just say I would have to look into that and get back to you.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the stormwater management is at those sites.
If you could look into that and let us know, I'd appreciate it, because I know we are trying to incorporate that in any new dog parks that we're implementing on our own due to the impacts that pet waste has on the swimmability of our water bodies here in the city. And then I would like to make a motion to amend the item to include the language proposed in the handout that we received today and that was emailed to us by John Goodrich. And if you need to make it clear to everyone, I can read the added whereas clauses. And I think that and the liability section are the only change, so I will read the new whereas clause, which is whereas Dog Grounds and MPRB recognize the off-leash dog recreation areas in Loring Park and Gateway Park have a limited service life and may need to be removed due to obsolescence, change patterns of use, or loss of permission to perpetuate the asset, and there's more, but they're not new. And then the other section that's new is 8 liability, and it reads as follows. MPRB agrees to accept the improvements and their constituent components at both sites in their okay, I'm a reader but not a pronouncer, so extent, thank you. Condition, however, Dog Grounds shall remain responsible for any faults and defects in the design and implementation of those improvements until such a time as MPRB modifies or removes a component.
Thank you, Commissioner Musich, for moving that amendment. Did you have any further questions?
I did not.
Vice President Crudup.
I have a question. If we didn't accept the land or the operations of the dog park, then who is the alternative? Or is there one?
Chair Schaefer, Commissioner Crudup, I think it differs slightly for the two different dog parks. The terms of the lease on the Loring Park site is that if Dog Grounds ever chose not to operate the park, they would have to remove it at their expense. So I think it would be removed and there would be no dog park. It would revert to parkland, probably just green open space. At the Gateway Dog Park, I don't know if there would become another operator or if that dog park would also need to be shuttered by Dog Grounds because of the terms of their permit with MnDOT. So typically these lease agreements with the public agencies that Dog Grounds has, if they're going to stop operating it, then they would have to restore the site to its original condition. I don't know of any other potential operators of these dog parks at this time.
Okay. And you said the average cost would be about $20,000 a year for operations?
Chair Schaefer, Commissioner Crudup, yeah, it's $22,490 per year for the total of the two dog parks, and that includes annual operations and also an annual investment in the life cycle replacement of the assets.
Okay, thank you.
President Forney.
Thank you. I'm not on this committee. Appreciate being able to speak to an exciting thing. And I guess I have a couple questions, and that is, were these included in our, what should we say, application for the Trust for Public Land?
Chair Schaefer, Commissioner, or President Forney, they were not included in our most recent submission.
Did I understand that the number 2 ranking city might possibly have edged us out because of dog parks?
Chair Schaefer, President Forney, Minneapolis's score went up significantly this year from last year. St. Paul's also went up. We closed the gap between us and St. Paul. But St. Paul's increase in score, as I understand it, was due to their opening of multiple dog parks last year.
Thank you. And what was it, like 0.4? Something like that was the difference of us to them?
Chair Schaefer, President Forney, I think that's very close to accurate.
Thank you. Just a little tease there. Sorry. And the other thing, I'm just so grateful to Lisa Goodman and to Ray Harris and everything. Is Dog Park, is that a part of their MOU, the name? And the reason why I'm saying that is somehow I feel like if we're going to be naming some things, possibly naming after them, and I just came up with Good Rays. Anyway. Thank you.
Yes, Director Arvidsson.
Thank you, Chair Schaefer, for the time. I want to note that because the changes, the staff proposed changes were read aloud, there actually is one additional one that is in the documentation, and I don't know if it needs to be read or not, but it's in section 7.2.
I will go ahead and read that statement that is referenced. MPRB may reserve up to 20% of such funds. This is the fundraising. I'll read the whole 7.2. Fundraising achieved by Dog Grounds shall be used solely to support the Loring Park and Gateway Dog Parks. MPRB may reserve up to 20% of such funds, but in no case more than $5,000 to be used to remove a dog park or restore the site to its prior condition. So that was the other. Was there anything else?
And a new 7.3.4.
Well, that wasn't underlined. Oh, no, point 4 was. Director Arvidsson, would you like to read those?
The staff amendment included a new item 7.3.4, and this is under the allowable uses of the fundraising, and it would include an allowable use, removal of a dog park, and restoration of the site to its prior condition.
Thank you. It is underlined, just for clarification. I missed it. Great. Is there any other questions on this resolution? Well, I just want to say I am thrilled. Councilmember Goodman really did this as a dog owner, and she gave that history. And for her to really see this as her kind of part of her legacy and moving on is pretty special. So I'm grateful to her and for her initiative in this. Let us first take a vote on the amendment. All those in favor of the staff amendment on this resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The amendment passes. All those in favor of resolution 2023-118 in regard to accepting 2 additional dog parks in the MPRB system, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That resolution passes, and I will adjourn the Admin and Finance Committee.
I will reconvene then the full board to entertain the which one is it? Are we bringing that
Planning.
forward or not?
Yes.
Yes, okay, sorry.
Yes,
Okay.
I would like to move Resolution 2023-111, resolution approving a design, installation, and maintenance agreement with the Native American Community Development Institute and Hennepin Theater Trust for the Bidet-Makaska Refectory Mural at Bidet-Makaska Park within the Minneapolis Chain of Lakes Regional Park.
Second?
Thank you. Any discussion? Discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. Okay, on to additions and communications. Commissioner Menz.
I'll pass today.
Commissioner Schaefer.
I will pass.
Commissioner Elper. Okay, on to Commissioner Musich, and I'll come back to you.
Thank you, President Forney. I don't know how many people are still watching us at this time of night, but unfortunately on social media there's been a firestorm of misinformation around when the Keewaydin play facilities are going to be open. They're not going to be done next week on Thursday. We are not having a ribbon cutting that day. We still have quite a few components of the project that need to be implemented before it is usable. We do not yet have a timeline on when that will be complete. However, the ribbon cutting has been scheduled for August 1st. And hopefully now the Recreation Center will be sharing out that information to anyone that calls as well. Thanks.
Commissioner Thompson.
Yeah, I will just say that this doesn't have to necessarily do with District 2, but how much I just respect my colleagues and, I'm kidding. And our staff. I appreciate always the hard conversations, and I really enjoy being part of this body that brings up things you don't think of and is willing to sit in the tension with you. So I just wanted to again say thank you and extend my gratitude toward this whole organization. Thank you.
Commissioner Bennett.
Pass.
Commissioner Olson, first of all, I should say thank you for being here. He did have I'll let him explain. Never mind.
Yeah, so yeah, sorry for being late. I actually got a new e-bike and it's super cool and fun and awesome. But on the way here, one of my panniers fell off mid-traffic and got caught in spokes and damaged the bike, and then was hit by a car and dragged several cars. I was fine. I was totally fine. But it was quite the ordeal. So that's kind of why I'm late, and I hate for being the cause of delay, and I know there's so many folks here, and I was able to tune in. I heard that, and that was beautiful, and I'm sorry I couldn't be here for that. And I was also tuned in, and I heard discussion around legislative stuff and our agenda, and I've been thinking about it, and I definitely, you were talking about bringing it up earlier. I think that would be great. Because I've been going out, obviously, in the summer and into our parks, and I am seeing liquor everywhere. and it's not causing harm, and it's just something people do and accept in certain areas of our parks. And so I know we're not discussing the full thing, but we have some state stuff that we want to do, and we had some conversations. Next year's the policy year. That is something I'd like to revisit, so at least we can maybe have further conversations about that. So, and I think the earlier the better. So those are my thoughts.
Commissioner Albert?
Thank you for allowing me to finish that last bite of dinner at 8:40-ish. Appreciate it. Okay, I just have a couple things. I just would like to note that in petitions and communications in the packet, with Central Gym Park, I want to just say we are not waiting for City of Skate on that project. We have funding on that project from Hennepin County Youth Sports Grant, and it's imperative that we spend it by the end of 2024. So I continue to be in support of skate park at Central Gym Park and moving that project along. If it means we do less community engagement, if it means that we build a smaller skate park, that is fine. The only thing worse than the worst thing that can happen is that we lose that grant, which has happened before. So I want to spend the money. So I just want to reiterate that. And then I do want to say I have been thinking about park dedication funding and the millions of dollars that we have in 86 different pots across the city. I'm working with staff. I'd really like to see, I have some ideas for Normanna Triangle, which is an undeveloped park. And I just want to let you know that the idea would be, and maybe it's precedent setting, to work with the neighborhood organization on doing some of that community engagement, to augment our staff capacity, to be able to spend down some of those unallocated, unspent funds sitting in all these 86 different pots, particularly if there's neighbors and community members that want to do a project and they have an avenue and an idea. Why should we hold them back? I think that's, again, the same with Fast Pitch. Why are we holding them back? I mean, that's why I want us to talk about these things. And if our model is not working for us, let's think about a different model. So I just want to let you know that I hope to have that come forward after meeting with staff on June 21st. Thanks.
Vice President Crudup.
All right, well, it's June, and there's a lot of amazing things happening. It's Black Music Month, also Pride, and Juneteenth is happening, and the Park Board is sponsoring one of them, and then there are many all across the state. So get engaged, get in tune. Huge shout out to the folks over at Central, Matt, and then the new director over at PV, just making some great connections with the staff. Really sad that Pearl Park will not have a football program. My son played at Pearl Park his entire little K-8 career, and sad to see that program is going away. He also plays flag football against his own teammates because we only have 3 teams for the 8th graders. So again, we have all of these amazing programs, but our kids in our own city are not taking advantage of them, and or they don't feel like the quality or the standard is there. I'm not sure, but I think this is just a reminder to us that we need to push our programs. If you have young people, if you are parents of small humans, many of you have big humans, so this isn't to you, but to the constituents that do. We have some really great volunteer coaches that are willing to come out and hang out, and we have really amazing staff. So get your kids enrolled in the program, and if you have concerns around the quality, share that with the staff so that we can make the improvements. Because I would love for my kids to continue to play against kids in the city, just because they make really amazing friendships. So that's it. Huge shout out to the staff once again. Thank you for all your work every day. We are in summer, and it is going to be absolutely insane. And so let's take care of each other and do some mental check-ins with our teams, because we are in for not a wonderful treat as a city, as I get to see on the ground every day, the level of just violence and sheer issues that our community members are facing. So our parks will be very much like our libraries, one of the only public places that people can go who maybe don't have access to a bathroom or a quiet place to sit. So Let's figure out how to be in a spirit of collaboration with agencies who actually have resources and skilled staff to deal with those issues. Thanks.
Thank you. I am going to be brief with my comments, but after that, Secretary Ringel and I are going to try and pull something that we'll wait for Councilor Rice to tell us whether it's possible or not. First of all, I'm surprised that Commissioner Menz didn't comment about the Marcy Park ribbon cutting that Superintendent Bangor and I were at. And the reason why I note it is the fact that it was another dog park that we are adding to the system. Anyway, very exciting. And then I also just want to extend to Assistant Superintendent Michael Schroeder and his family. I'm sending them healing and light in this time of their loss. So I am going to ask Secretary Ringel to read what I failed to ask her to do during the public hearing, the written comments regarding the naming. If we do this, we now have a full board in attendance. Whether or not this will qualify for a true second hearing, we will wait for Councilor Rice, but at least we do have 3 comments that did not get read into the record. So,
point of parliamentary inquiry, that was a time certain item, so I don't believe we're able to reopen the public hearing at this time. Yeah.
Public hearings are time certain.
So in other words, therefore, the reading of those public comments are not allowable at this time, and probably we will need to schedule another public hearing. Is that what you're advising us?
That would be my opinion, Madam President.
Point of clarification, did Commissioner Olson hear the public hearing?
He needs to be
putting it on the
attendant.
record.
I'm sorry. Okay. So upon that, then, we will adjourn here at 8:49.
Yeah.
Kitty's, oh, yeah, that's fine.